Greetings, folks. Thank you for taking the time to tune into the channel. Well, I wanted to go ahead and draw your attention to the active shooter that is taking place right now in Ohio State University. Here we see alerts that got put out where they tell them there's an active shooter on campus to run, hide, and fight. And their last one was to continue to shelter in place, wait for a police officer's direction, and to please contact 911 if you have information. So we'll go ahead and go to the live stream of what they have going on. I want to thank everyone so much for tuning in.
Offices, they evacuated all of those. There are dormitories just east of this, but as far as we know, they have this garage surrounded. They have all four corners of it they're keeping an eye on. They took canine dogs in there. They have some dogs still out here, and the SWAT vehicles are still here waiting. There seems to be a large number of law enforcement, as you can see, right down there on the corner of Tuttle and Neal, but we're not really sure exactly what's doing. They're probably allowing these guys, the SWAT officers that are dressed up in Kevlar and helmets and stuff, to walk through the garage. So that's about all we have right now at this point.
And again, this is at Neal and Tuttle Park.
Yes, Neal and Tuttle Park Place. Don't confuse this with the Tuttle Park that's out by the mall. This is on OSU campus. Yes. Tuttle Park Place, yes, which is just south of Varsity Club on Lane Avenue. So that's where it intersects. And this garage is on the east side of Tuttle Park,
which is a busy area.
Now we're seeing a lot of officers going in right now. So we're watching officers. They seem to be going into the building right now. So we're not really sure what is going on here. But we do know that they're going up the stairs there now. You can see you got SWAT officers going up the first floor stairs. We're not sure exactly who and what we have in here, but you heard Ted say earlier that there was a car involved. So that car may have ended up here in the garage. So this may be where that car that Ted was talking about, this may have been where it ended at. So at this point, we don't really know much more than that. We are kind of hunkered down here behind an OSU van to kind of keep ourselves out of the line of fire.
Just some news that we received from the Associated Press, just an update on the victims. We had known that 7 were taken to the hospital, transported with some type of injuries. We know 2 are stable right now. That is the latest that we're getting in. But again, they were just taken to the hospital. So we don't know about the other 5. But we're monitoring that. We have a crew there at Wexner Medical Center to bring the latest on the victims in this. If you're just joining us, this is at a parking garage, a parking ramp at the OSU campus. This is at Tuttle Park and Neal, and you can see SWAT officers there going up the stairs. They have just entered. We had heard earlier that there were some canine officers who had gone in, but now SWAT moving in, going up the stairs of this parking garage on the Ohio State University campus. You're also looking at live pictures from Chopper 4 over the scene, over that same area, and that gives you, I think, a better view, an understanding of the police presence there at this scene. And there are 2 scenes really that we're following on campus, the one at Watts Hall, which is where the original Buckeye alert came out of, but also there at this parking garage where we have Rick Reitzel bringing us updates. Rick, if you're still there, can you just describe what you're seeing as SWAT moves in?
I am. Yes, I am here. Now, as you said, we saw SWAT members and law enforcement go in. They went up. We could see them go up through the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floor. They're now up there on the 4th floor. You can see through the windows where they are walking up the stairwell. We don't see them going into the garage. They are mainly just going up the stairs to the stairwell. They're on the 4th floor at this point. So looks like they're still moving upwards. So they're going from the 4th to the 5th floor. Moving very slow and methodically, checking things. You can see they're all very well armed and they're all very well armored. So they're going up the 5th floor at this point. I still see them traveling upwards. So we're not really sure where they're going or what they're going two, but so far they are on the 5th floor of this parking garage, which is on Tuttle Park Place and Neal. So that's what we know at this point.
And Rick, you keep monitoring that. We'll get back to you in just a moment. I want to go to Ted Hart, who is at Watts Hall. And our understanding was that students and staff, faculty, anyone inside was still being told to shelter in place. Ted, what do you have there?
Well, I just talked to the gentleman, and once again, whose girlfriend is inside there, hunkered down in a bathroom with a couple of other people, and he tells me that she is still there, staying in place until getting some kind of word to leave, and that hasn't happened yet. We also saw here from our vantage point a car, an unmarked car, though, with lights and sirens go flying down Woodruff Avenue here a few minutes ago, headed down in the direction of where Rick is and that garage. And it's our belief that that car was a negotiator, a police negotiator, headed down to that scene where Rick is. And to kind of reset what we have here, this is College and Woodruff on the north end of the Ohio State University campus. There is just a mass of police and emergency responders here. We did see, again, from the gentleman whose girlfriend is inside the building still, a photograph that was taken from that vantage point looking back this way, that you could see a body on the ground outside Watts Hall. And we did, after we arrived here in that same general vicinity over here to your left, a little bit salt where that fire truck is now, we did see a squad, and we did an EMS unit, and they loaded someone into that squad and sped off. And my photographer, who was able to zoom in at the time, saw that that person was, in fact, conscious. We don't know whether that is in the same person that was in the photograph that we saw just a few minutes ago that showed a body out near the street. You can see further to our left here now, the Columbus Police Mobile Command Post has now set up here. And we have seen just, I don't know, countless numbers of SWAT officers, police officers with long guns here in the unit or in this area. And we know they've been searching some areas around here, but we just don't know at this point whether Watts Hall has been secured or what exactly the situation is here as far as what happened. We did hear from the department chair of that building that one of his colleagues, he said, had been slashed in the leg with a machete. And we have heard that a number of individuals may have been hit by a car outside the building. So, but all of that is unconfirmed at this point. There's nothing official from police. This is all from people who are hearing from other folks as to what they've seen.
All right. Ted, thank you. We appreciate that new information. I want to go to Olivia now, a different vantage point on this. Olivia, you had spoken to students who were they were scared, and rightfully so. What are you seeing now in that area?
Yeah, Allie, just talked to another student who, of course, like everyone else out here, he's feeling about the same way. He told me he was walking through this area right before this all happened on his way to an advising session. He said he actually got here before any of these police vehicles arrived. Walking through this area, he said he heard them call for 911. Of course, as we know earlier, the Buckeye alert that was sent out told students to avoid this area. We have managed to move up West Woodruff a little further to College, and this is just about the corner where Watts Hall is. You can probably see it right about here, the engineering building, which is essentially the epicenter of everything that's going on right now. As of about 20 minutes ago, the Buckeye alert on Twitter still tells people to continue to shelter in place and wait for police officer directions. Only contact 911 if you have a problem. As you can see here to the right of where I'm standing, there are still a number of students standing out here while there is a shelter in place advisory going on. There are about a dozen students here, most of them on their phones, some of them taking videos and pictures of this scene that has developed out here in front of Curl Hall. Again, Watts Hall is the engineering building where this is all believed to have been going on. Again, like we mentioned last time, some of these medic vehicles have cleared out of here, but we still are hearing sirens, still seeing lights, still seeing different vehicles come in and out of this area as they try to investigate what is going on out here. We've seen police officers with long guns in this area. We've seen lots and lots of fire and EMS coming through. If you take a look right here on Woodruff Avenue, there is the bomb squad now coming through this street with a medic vehicle right behind it. Again, there are a number of police and fire crews here on the scene. Students still standing around the corner where we were before, and over here, many of them just waiting and watching. Some of them say they have friends who have classes in this building, and many of them were fortunate enough to either be at home or in a different area of campus when this all started going down. But they, of course, are standing here waiting for more information. One student asked how many people have been taken to the hospital. At this point, he's hoping to hear that they're all okay, as we all are. We do know, as you reported, Ellie, that 2 of those people who were taken to the hospital are stable right now.
All right, Olivia, thank you. We want to recap for anyone who is just joining us now. You're looking at live pictures, live reporting from the Ohio State University campus, where there is an active shooter situation. It was just after 10 o'clock today that a Buckeye alert went out telling students, anyone in Watts Hall, to be careful there and to shelter in place, that there was an active shooter situation. And you're looking at live pictures from Chopper 4. Now, what we know, 7 people were taken to the hospital, taken to OSU Wexner Medical Center with some type of injuries. We don't know the nature or the extent of those injuries. We know 2 people are stable right now, in stable condition. The other 5 we have not heard yet. We also know there are 2 scenes. There is Watts Hall, where we have several crews, and there's a large police presence around Watts Hall. We have our Ted Hart there reporting live, and Ted, you've been speaking with students and those who worked and were in Watts Hall every day. So to see this, they're scared.
Yeah, they are. You can see these. Here's a police dog and some officers here continuing to kind of search around the area. They're checking cars, dumpsters, everything around here. It's kind of it's an unnerving situation. We did see, by the way, the big Columbus Fire Department bomb squad unit just pull out of here in a hurry. Appeared to be relocating and headed out north on High Street. It may be headed back down toward the garage, perhaps where the other scene is, where a SWAT is going through that garage building that Rick described. But yeah, nothing really new at this point. No word yet on whether Watts Hall is secure. It doesn't look like there's any sense of panic here around Watts Hall, but again, we do know from this individual that we've been talking to a little bit here about his girlfriend up in the bathroom. He says that she's still up there the last we'd heard from him.
Ted, just an update. We have confirmed.
So at this point,
oh, go ahead. I was just going to confirm police have told us now, Ted, that there are 9 victims taken to the hospital. 8 are stable and 1 in critical condition. And those victims coming from your location there at Watts Hall.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Again, go back to the one version of the story that we heard here, which was that a fire alarm may have gone off inside Watts Hall at some point. People may have rushed to evacuate that building, and some may have been hit by a car. That's one version of the story that we've heard, that the gunman was in that car, that a shooting of some sort took place. Now, how this professor may have been slashed in the leg with a machete, if in fact that's true, we're just not sure at this point how this all unfolded. And until we get those details from police, I hesitate to speculate too much here, but that might account for the number of victims. We'll see.
And Ted, we can now confirm, police officials on the scene confirm for us that the one suspect is confirmed dead. I don't know the exact location, if they are still working that parking garage near Lane Avenue. This is, you're looking at live pictures from that parking garage from Chopper 4. And we had Rick Reitzel on the ground. He was gathering new information for us, but we had just seen within the last 15 minutes SWAT go into that parking garage. And then we have confirmed with police now that at least one suspect is dead. We know there are 9 victims from this active shooter situation. 8 of them are in stable condition. 1 is still in critical. We have heard that from Columbus Fire. There is a large police presence, and really the last word from OSU police was that people should continue to shelter in place. Wait for police officers' directions and do not call 911. Only call 911 if you have information. So we're going to go to Olivia Fecto now. And Olivia, this is, I'm not sure what you're seeing with the police situation there, if there is any pullback with their presence, but we've confirmed one person, one suspect in this case, dead.
Yeah, Allie, we're not really seeing a pullback here, but there is definitely, as Ted mentioned, not really a sense of panic here right now. There are, if you take a look, there are still students standing around. You know, I hate to use the word calm because, of course, in this situation, it's anything but students are standing around here, you know, just watching what is going on. You know, on the other corner, of course, we talked to those students who said, you know, they felt safe knowing that police were here, but unsafe knowing that something like this was going on their campus. I'm sure it brings a sense of calm somewhat to know that the suspect has been confirmed dead at this point. We do still see, if you take a look over at the corner where Watts Hall is, we do still see law enforcement. There's an officer with a helmet and a backpack on walking through right now. As we saw when we last spoke to you, there was the bomb squad driving down Woodruff Avenue, getting out of this scene rather quickly. We still hear police sirens. We still see dozens of police vehicles. So while this scene does seem to be a bit calmer than it was before, there are still a lot of vehicles here on the scene. You know, people still standing around trying to figure out what's going on, if their colleagues and fellow students are safe right now. Again, not a lot of new information for us out here right now, but we're going to continue working to find that out and keep speaking to these students and see what people who were in the area at the time going to class or just walking through might have heard, might have seen, and let you know what they are dealing with right now, Ellie.
Yeah, this is absolutely a scary situation. What we know is that police have now said that one suspect is confirmed dead. We don't know if there are additional suspects. They certainly have not put an all clear on this. The last word from OSU police was that people should continue to shelter in place and take this situation very seriously. What a large police presence we have there. OSU police, Columbus police, the bomb squad, and SWAT that had just gone into that parking garage there at Tuttle Park Place and Neal. And we have live cameras at various scenes, as well as Chopper 4 flying over this to bring you the very latest. We do want to go back to Ted Hart, who is at Watts Hall, and that is where this really all began. Ted?
Yeah, Ellie, you can get a sense that folks are in kind of a stand down mode at this point. Still lots of lights flashing, but there's no sense of urgency any longer here as far as what we see in the police activity. I did talk to Joe Smeltzer again. He's a gentleman who had been communicating by text with his girlfriend inside. She is out of Watts Hall now and has been taken to the medical center for treatment, apparently having suffered some discomfort from the tear gas that may have been used inside the building, but nothing more serious than that. But she is out of the building, as presumably are all others now that they've gone through that building. But he also passed along a note that the janitor of this building had sent out to staff first thing after this happened, indicating that there was an individual inside the building who had been stabbed or slashed in the leg. And that corresponds with what we'd heard from the department chair, who had said that one of his colleagues had been slashed in the leg with a machete inside Watts Hall. And we have seen this photograph that we passed along to you folks. It was taken from inside the building looking this way, that showed a body on the ground. We don't know who the body was, what that was. We did see someone loaded into a squad when we first got here and taken away. So there's there's news right now from the parking garage down the street, and that's where Rick Reitzel's standing by. Rick, what's the latest there?
Well, Ted, we saw them bring two people out in handcuffs. One was a pretty tall African-American wearing dark pants and a dark jacket. He was handcuffed behind his back. They put him in that SWAT vehicle. We also saw a young white male wearing blue jeans and a gray sweatshirt with looking like it was kind of a burgundy shirt sticking out underneath of it. Both of them were cuffed. All the SWAT officers, as you can see, most of them are coming out right now. We do know that they took two people. They might be considered persons of interest. They brought them out and they in handcuffs behind their back, and they put them in that SWAT vehicle that just moved them off. So we do know two people have been taken into custody. We don't know whether they've been arrested or what. I have seen some other people coming out, a man in a business suit and a tie just walking out with a SWAT officer with his arm around him. He was not cuffed. Those were the only two we saw come out, but both of those were cuffed, an African-American in a black shirt and black pants. And he also looked like he had an identification on a lanyard, one of those OSU identifications or some form of identification that he had draped around his front on a lanyard. So an African-American and a white man, they were dressed in black and the other one dressed in gray and blue jeans. When we get more information, we'll get that to you. And back to you guys.
And Rick, before you go, the SWAT officers there are they in a stand down mode? Do they feel like this is all clear?
Well, it's hard to tell from this distance. We're seeing them still standing there holding their automatic weapons and their shotguns, and we're not seeing anybody leave. I'm still seeing SWAT officers on the other corners, and I'm seeing them look like, you know, it's still an active scene. Although we know they've taken two people out in cuffs. They're the first people we've seen them bring out and put in cuffs. The rest of them they've just brought out, patted down, and let go. So these are it still looks like this could be an active scene.
Okay. All right, Rick, thank you. We appreciate that live report. Again, this is from the parking garage on North Campus, on the OSU campus. It's been more than an hour now since the first Buckeye alert went out on this situation. And in the last hour, a lot has unfolded at this parking garage where SWAT first moved in, surrounded the garage, and then went up inside. And you just heard Rick with this the latest information, two people taken into custody, persons of interest or suspects of some sort in this situation. Ted Hart is at Watts Hall. We understand we have some live pictures coming out of there, and we are hearing, I'm seeing some tweets from students that Watts Hall has been given the all clear, but we're not sure of that yet. We have not heard that from OSU police, and although I'm monitoring the latest that they're sending out. We do have Chopper 4 over the scene, and again, this is at the parking garage. I understand Ted is doing an interview right now. Can we listen in on that?
And I'm stuck here, like 75 yards away.
Yeah, Ellie, I'm with a gentleman by the name of Morgan. Morgan, one more time, can you tell us what this is? Your wife was inside Watts Hall this morning,
and they evacuated her originally
because an
fire alarm went off, so they were all outside. Then someone came through, hitting them with their car, hitting people with the car. That's all she knows. She obviously ran at that point, and they are hiding in one of the buildings at this time, waiting for the police to come get them.
Give them the all clear.
Yes.
Did she hear any shots fired or see any weapons of any sort?
Not that she told me. Like, she immediately obviously started running. So
what she saw was a car come through and just randomly hitting people.
From she said she was about 20 feet away when this happened. So
she wasn't hurt.
No, she was lucky. So
okay, but
that's all I know.
You're still waiting to hear.
Just waiting.
Are you on the phone with her now?
I am. Have been for the last hour or whenever this started.
She's okay?
She's okay.
And she's with others?
4 others.
Okay.
And that's all. That's all I know.
Thank you. So there's another version here of what happened. This is from a man whose wife was an eyewitness to this. An alarm went off in Watts. This coincides with some of the stuff we'd heard earlier. People went out of the building, and at some point a car came through and struck a number of victims. There's also, okay, let me have Joe Schmelzer step in. Joe, we spoke to you earlier.
Yeah.
Your girlfriend was holed up in a bathroom inside Watts Hall.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Well, what's the latest from what she tells you?
That there was this is from a friend, but she's still in contact. She's safe. She's out. Went to the hospital.
And you had said that was because of tear gas.
Yeah. Supposedly a OSU maintenance worker sent out a mass email stating that there was more than one suspect, possible bomb threat.
Don't say any names, by the way.
Yeah. There's a gentleman was stabbed in the leg, and paramedics have taken him to the hospital, but they're in room 184 in Watts Hall.
Okay. And that building, we believe, is secured now.
Yeah. And there are 2 people just got handcuffed.
Yeah, we know about that at the parking garage.
Yeah.
Right. So what was it like for her? What had she told you it was like?
She just said it was awful, and she don't want to do this again.
She's scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so, she was there with a couple of other people for what, more than better part of an hour or more?
About an hour and a half, 2 hours almost going on.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. Thanks, Joe, appreciate it. So, you know, there's information we're getting from people who have loved ones who are inside these buildings and saw some things. So, again, his girlfriend is safe, apparently suffered some discomfort from the tear gas, was taken to Wexner Medical Center. She's okay. The other gentleman we talked to, Morgan, whose wife was in Watts Hall, was evacuated when the alarm went off, witnessed the car coming through and striking a number of people. She took off, and she's actually still holed up in a building next door here, waiting for an all clear from police. So that's kind of the latest from here. I'll have Salt spin around here again and just kind of give you the latest on what this is going to be. A little rough as we make the turn here, but kind of you can see now actually there's a fire truck pulling out, and clearly get the sense that that folks are winding this thing down. It's not nearly the active situation that we saw an hour ago.
Well, and what a relief for so many people who have been wondering about loved ones who either are inside Watts Hall or even just near in that North Campus area. When the Buckeye alert goes out and friends and loved ones see it and wonder where and if their loved ones are okay. So a lot of people hopefully getting some relief there. There are victims in this situation from this Buckeye alert that went out. We want to go to Dan Perlman because Dan, I understand you're at the OSU Wexner Medical Center where those victims were taken. What are you hearing?
Yes, Ellie, absolutely. We are standing here outside of the Wexner Medical Center. If I step out of the way, you can see a couple of police cars out front, but other than that, it's actually pretty.
Hang on one second here, folks. I'm assuming they're just experiencing technical difficulties here.
Today at The Ohio State University involving an assailant. Our priority is to ensure the health and safety of our patients, visitors, employees. At this time, we are taking the appropriate steps, including collaborating with local authorities to understand what has occurred and to manage the situation. We'll post updates on the intranet website and online media room for patients at OSU Wexner Medical Center. Normal operations and appointments will continue as scheduled. So we have a couple of scenes here. There was Watts Hall, which we just heard from Ted. It appeared people were coming out and being cared for as needed. And then there was this parking garage, which you're looking at live right now from Chopper 4. And these are live pictures of that garage from the ground. This is near Lane Avenue. This is also near the Blackwell, just north of the Blackwell on Tuttle Park and Neal Avenue. And SWAT had surrounded that. There was a heavy police presence. They moved in just within the last half hour, went up the steps and pulled 2 suspects or persons of interest out of there, made 2 arrests. And we have both Rick Reitzel there monitoring that scene, and we have Olivia Fecto, who has been talking with students and staff and people in that area who have been monitoring this, wondering how their loved ones are doing, if they're, or what they should even do. And the latest word has still been to be careful in that area. Olivia?
Yeah, Allie, we've been talking to students and people who were in this area around the time that it happened. We just talked to a woman who's a chef here at the Curl Market, which is the building here next to us. It's a campus cafe. She says that earlier this morning, around when this all happened, that they saw dozens of students running past the wall of this building towards the window. And she said that typically when she sees something like this, of course, she assumes that something has happened. And she said that, you know, she's worked at that market for about a year since it opened, and said she's wondering right now if any of the victims who were injured and taken to the hospital out of this incident were people she knew. We also just spoke to a student, a sophomore, who lives in a dorm that is over here, kind of kitty corner to where we're standing. And he said that, about 30 to 45 minutes ago, he heard a gunshot. At first, he said he didn't really think anything of it, and he said that he came outside and saw just all of this scene here in front of Watts Hall with all of these police vehicles. Just to bring you back to what's going on right now, a lot of the students here have dispersed. There are still a few standing out here watching what's happening. I have not seen any of the officers really out of their cruisers in the last little while. You can see there are still a few patrol officers in white uniforms who are out here now. The scene does appear to have relaxed a little bit, as you mentioned, with one of the suspects confirmed dead, and as Rick mentioned, a couple other people arrested. There of course is still a pretty active police presence here, but we have seen things somewhat slow down in the last little while. Of course, it's still a scary situation for the students who are out here watching, for the employees of these campus buildings who are, just wondering if everybody they know is okay. And, they're all obviously thankful that they weren't walking through this area as this was all going on, Ellie.
And Olivia, I'm seeing people on Facebook marking themselves safe during the violent incident in Columbus, the Ohio State University campus. Some people marking themselves safe on Facebook to let friends and family know. We had just heard from Rick that when SWAT went into that parking garage, that they brought out 2 men, and we had some new video of that to show you of those arrests taking place. If you can see this is some of the arrests that they made. At least took 2 men into custody there at this parking garage that they had surrounded. So this is some new video coming in.
2 of them.
And you also are seeing Chopper 4 flying over that scene. So you can still see the large police presence. But these are the individuals taken into custody just moments ago by SWAT officers there at this parking garage. This came in as an active shooter situation, but we're hearing from witnesses that people were hit with a car. There perhaps was a machete, some type of stabbings there as well. So some details to sort through on exactly what unfolded outside and inside Watts Hall this morning on the Ohio State University campus. But it appears that this video just coming in that 2 men have been taken into custody, pulled from that parking garage on the Ohio State University campus. We are going to go to Rick Reitzel, who has been at that spot since the story first broke, bringing us the very latest information as it came in. And at one point we saw you crouched down, obeying police orders and moving back as needed. But what are you seeing there now?
Well, we were all the way up on Tuttle Park Place when this first started breaking, when we saw them surrounding this garage. Now, as you said, they brought 2 people out of this garage, and we saw that. You saw the video of them. We don't know whether they're just persons of interest, but they were both handcuffed behind their back, one African-American in all black, and a young white man that was wearing a sweatshirt and blue jeans. Now, we also want you to see that the SWAT officers are still by the front door here, and they're still in this building. But also, if you look over here between Conrad's and Panera's on Lane Avenue. You can see the hostage negotiation vans are setting there. Now, that's what they usually use when they've tried to make contact with someone. We are hearing there's still one suspect possibly in this garage. We don't know much more than that about who that is or where they are, and we're not really sure what they have done with those two people they brought out in cuffs, but we have not seen them release them at this point. But SWAT still has this student services building and this garage surrounded on all four corners, and it still looks like a very active scene. So that's about all we know at this point. Nothing new other than those two people brought out in cuffs.
All right, Rick, thank you. Yes, the latest from OSU police. Their Buckeye alert still stands. Continue to shelter in place. Wait for police officers' directions and only call 911 if you have new information. We've heard from our reporters on scene that police seem to have relaxed the scene a bit, but there is no official all clear from OSU police. You're looking at live pictures from Chopper 4 over that parking garage where Rick Reitzel is, and additional live pictures from the garage, as we had just shown you live, SWAT officers going in and they arrested two people. Now we have Olivia Fecto near Watts Hall, as well as NBC4's Ted Hart. He arrived just minutes after this alert went out and has seen this situation unfold there, with the very latest being that there are 8 people injured. 7 of them are in stable condition, but we know that 1 person is in critical condition, and that's what we're hearing, Ted.
Yeah, and so we also know that there are still people in some of the buildings that are just sheltering in place. They're waiting now for police officers to come through some of these buildings to let them know it's all clear, or waiting for a text message from or an alert from the university to let them know that it's all clear. We spoke to a gentleman whose wife is sheltering in place in one of the buildings beside Watts Hall here. She's safe, but she told her husband that she was in Watts Hall when the alarm of some sort went off. Didn't know whether it was a fire alarm or a gas leak or what the reason was that the alarm went off, but everyone left the building. And while they were outside the building here at 19th and College, a car came through, she says, and began randomly hitting people who were standing outside because of the alarm. And a number of people were hit by this car. We also have heard that inside Watts Hall, or perhaps it was outside, but an individual who works in Watts Hall, a professor, may have been slashed or cut somehow in the leg. And the word was that had been done with a machete. Now, we don't know whether that's true or not, but that's one of the stories that folks are hearing from people who were at the scene at the time. We know that people who were still inside Watts Hall and heard the chaos, whether it was gunshots or not, they took shelter in a bathroom. We spoke to a gentleman by the name of Joe Smeltzer, who told us that his girlfriend was taking shelter in a bathroom up there for a period of time. That she is at Wexner Medical Center along with others at this point, having suffered some from the tear gas that was used by police. Joe, do you have any new information? Have you heard something from your girlfriend?
Not from my girlfriend, but from a friend. They got another gunman cornered right now.
Where is that?
Around here somewhere, I don't know, but just down here.
Okay, so that might make sense. Joe is kind of in touch with a friend who's in law enforcement, and that's where he's getting some of his information. So that could be. I mean, that might account for why the helicopter is still circling overhead here, and why these buildings are still not yet secure, and why we haven't seen an all clear. So.
Well, and Ted.
So still a fluid situation, Ellie.
Are trying to hear, are waiting to hear from their loved ones, and Facebook has activated its safe marking. People can mark themselves safe during the violent incident in Columbus, Ohio. So that is the latest that we're we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're back. If you had missed us, we're back with this breaking news situation on the Ohio scenes that you're looking at, Watts Hall, and then this parking garage where 2 men were arrested within the last half hour. We have several crews there, and we've been following this story since it first broke. Chopper 4 flying over that scene, that parking garage where 2 suspects were arrested. People are just starting to hear again from their loved ones, whether if they're safe, where they are. The original Buckeye alert went out about an hour and a half ago to alert people in the Watts Hall area there at 19th and College to shelter in place, that there was an active shooter situation. We are hearing from witnesses now, though, that some type of a fire alarm went off. People had left Watts Hall, and then a vehicle came up and hit some people. After that, there were 8 people taken to the hospital. We know 1 person is in critical condition from this situation across North Campus. And SWAT had moved in on this parking garage at Tuttle Park Place and Neal Avenue. This is just north of the Blackwell, and these are live pictures from both of those scenes there. SWAT's still there. The all clear has not been given. Ohio State University police still have their Buckeye alert active and in place. We have had several reports from around that area, just as students have been leaving and sheltering in place. Some were told to get out of the area. Others were in Watts Hall, were told to shelter there. We have Olivia Fecto, who is close by. And Olivia, what are you hearing now? I know you've been talking to a lot of students there who've been scared.
Yeah, Allie, definitely a lot of students here who are scared about what's going on as this all unfolds. Just take a look over here. We can show you that the scene is still active. There is an ambulance coming through here. We've been talking to police to try to find out if this Buckeye alert is still officially active. And from the looks of it, it is still active. People are still being asked to shelter in place and not to call 911 or police unless there is an actual emergency. We're just going to step out of the way right here. I did just check online on the OSU's emergency website, which is where the Buckeye alerts come out of. I just want to step aside as this ambulance drives through here. And as of about 15 minutes ago, they did post an alert saying law enforcement will continue to have a visible presence on campus. It says all academic classes on this campus have been canceled for the rest of the day. Campus is still open, of course, but with the shelter in place, it also says that some of the buildings are going to be closed until further notice. And that does, of course, include Watts Hall and a number of these other buildings here on North Campus. Again, we've been talking to students who, some of them were in this area when this was all happening and came over a little closer to see what was going on. Others of them, we're a little farther away. Some of them were in their dorms or apartments. Others, one student we talked to was on a bus when this is all happening, but now they are all over in this area waiting for more information about the number of people injured, people who are still inside these buildings, and we'll continue to talk to them and find out their stories here today, Allie.
Well, good to hear that, again, that Buckeye alert, given the all clear now from OSU police, scene is secure, all classes canceled on the Columbus campus for the remainder of the day, but good to hear the shelter in place alert that went out lifted. Scene is now secure. We have a professor from the Chemical and Biomedical Engineering Department, David Wood, on the phone with us. Professor Wood, what can you tell us? Where were you and what did you see and hear?
Oh, well, when I was giving a lecture this morning, and about 5 or 10 minutes before 10 o'clock, a bunch of students came running into the classroom saying that there had been shots fired outside and that they wanted to stay inside the classroom to shelter in place. And so we ended the lecture then, and I went up to my office. My office is in Seebeck, so I'm looking down over 19th Avenue now. Mm-hmm. And basically, as soon as I got up and looked out, there's a dead body close to the loading dock for Kofold. And it was just a person lying there Blood was starting to pool. There were a lot of police around, a lot of people running around. The body's still there. There's a sheet over it now. You can see the blood soaking through. And there's a lot of police sort of around the body, and then there's fire truck, police. And this is right where the Cofault loading dock is.
And you said this is on 19th Avenue?
Yeah. So it's if you look at the pictures of the campus, there's Watts is at one end of a large sort of crooked building, and then Seebeck is the bright white building next to Cofault. And so there's a loading dock that goes into Cofault off of 19th, and that's where all of this is. I'm kind of surprised that there's no photos or video coming through from this.
And tell me again, did you hear the fire alarms? We're also hearing that people were hit by a vehicle, and that we're also hearing people say that there were shots fired. Did you hear or see any of that?
So the way the classroom, it's an internal classroom, so the classroom doesn't actually open to the outside. So in the classroom, I didn't hear any shots fired at all. About 4 or 5 students came running into the classroom and said that there had been shots fired outside. They think somebody had been shot. And I looked out and I could see police starting to gather, and I saw somebody on the ground. But I didn't realize that they had been killed until I got up to my office a few minutes later. And so that was all right around 10 o'clock, a few minutes before 10 o'clock. So I didn't hear any shots fired. It was students running into my classroom at about 10 minutes before 10.
Okay. And then the Buckeye.
And they said they had heard shots. And then the Buckeye alert started popping up on everybody's phones.
And so did you shelter in place there in your office?
So I stayed in my classroom for a little while. I think a lot of people were still kind of confused. There were students running around at first. And this was when the police were just starting to show up. And so I went ahead and went up to my office, which is in the same building. It's just upstairs. I figured that would be safer anyway. And yeah, I at that point, people thought maybe it was an isolated incident. They were thinking maybe it was a suicide. They didn't know if this guy was the shooter, if there were more shooters. One student that I talked to who was standing next to me at the very beginning said he thought that this was the shooter and that maybe that they had committed suicide. At that point, we didn't know that multiple people had been shot and that more of the campus was involved. So we just kind of looked out the window, saw a bunch of police coming and showing up, and there were still students kind of going to class and wandering around, a few students. But then by the time I got upstairs to my office, all the hallways were completely empty, and people were in their labs or in their offices behind locked doors at that point.
And just to be clear for anyone just joining us, OSU police do say that the scene is secure. The shelter in place has been lifted. But from your vantage point there, Professor Wood, there appears to be still a very heavy police presence as they go through this situation and try to figure out exactly what unfolded.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's still police, carrying rifles. It seems like they still have a perimeter around here. They're putting up red tape now instead of yellow tape. So I think they are getting ready to investigate the crime scene now.
And I'd imagine this news is it's so shocking, and so many people have been scared, both the students who were there as this unfolded, but others who are wondering how their loved ones are doing there on campus. Forgive me, I'm looking at this Chopper 4 video.
I mean, I guess the details will come out. The first thing I did was call my wife, and then I have students who are not on campus today who started texting fast. Everything's okay. But yeah, I mean, I as far as I know, the only fatality is this one that I'm looking at right now out the window. And I think what's starting to come out is that that's one of the shooters or the shooter.
We do know
so
one.
Hopefully.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say we do know one suspect is dead. Police have confirmed that for us. There were two other people, two men taken into custody at the parking garage that is just northwest of your location there on the OSU campus. You said your first call was to your wife?
I don't know why it just froze up on me there. You know, I do want to quickly state one of the things that seems off to me is that about 10 minutes ago, that guy had just said that the cop had told him that there was another shooter over there. And then a few minutes later, they gave the all clear. So that part doesn't make sense. And I just wanted to quick note that so you guys could know what was taking place.
Class in the morning. So yeah, this was completely by surprise. At first, when students come running in, I thought it was a joke. And then I thought maybe it was fireworks or maybe, some celebration because of the Michigan game. And then I looked outside and I saw this body lying on the ground and police everywhere. And I thought, okay, I need to get to my office.
And just to update folks, OSU police did just put out another tweet saying that the area around 19th and College Avenue, where you are, Professor Wood, is still closed. They will be sending out a list of buildings and additional information. Classes are canceled. We're thankful to hear that the scene is secure. The shelter in place has been lifted, but there is a lot of work to do there still at the Ohio State University campus, where we know at least 8 people were injured, 1 critically injured in this very violent situation that unfolded there this morning. Professor David Wood on the phone with us, who was inside Watts Hall as this all unfolded this morning.
I was inside CBEC.
Oh yes.
CBEC.
And then, yeah. Yes, and you went to your office, correct? Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was also in CBEC.
We very much appreciate your insight here and your words, and thankful that you are indeed safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone who is just joining us, we have been following this for the last hour and a half now. This violent situation that unfolded this morning on the campus of The Ohio State University at Watts Hall, which is where the original Buckeye alert came out of. There had been a report of an active shooter on campus. We have heard reports from witnesses there that there had been a fire alarm. Students and individuals had exited, and at that point, a vehicle ran into them. We know there are multiple injuries. One, as I had mentioned, one person is in critical condition, but this all unfolded in the last hour and a half. The latest coming from OSU police is that the scene is secure. The shelter in place, which had been in place for at least an hour and a half, has now been lifted. We have multiple crews there at different vantage points to bring you the latest. I think most people are just hoping to hear that their loved ones are doing well. We're going to listen in on a live interview right now. Our Ted Hart is outside Watts. Let's listen in.
I work in the hospital. I'm a nursing assistant, so I'm like CPR first aid trained. So it's kind of like a couple seconds of like, do I go look to help? No, emergency services wouldn't want me in there. They'd want to do their own thing. I would just be in the way. So I was like, kind of like, this opportunity almost like, but then it's like, yeah, no, like this is like, stop fantasizing. It's serious. Get in the building, shelter, that kind of thing.
And where were you sheltered again?
So in a classroom here in Arps Hall.
How many people were there?
15, maybe.
And what were you hearing from anybody that was over there? Did you have friends or students who were closer?
To the event? No. So the only thing I know from anyone near there is kind of a friend of my cousin who had talked, and she's the one that told me that they had in fact pulled the fire alarm to get out, but the cousin had gone back inside, like thinking the fire alarm, I've got work to do, ignoring the fire alarm. And then it happened after that. So I don't know anyone that was any closer. So there have to be, dozens of people that were right there.
Did you see a vehicle?
No, I didn't see anything other than the cop car in the intersection there.
So they pulled the fire alarm after they heard this explosion or whatever?
No. So my understanding of the situation is that the assailants had pulled the fire alarm. And when I was walking to class, there was on the South Campus dorms near the Union, there had been a fire alarm pulled because I saw people standing outside. So I think they pulled the fire alarm. They pulled the fire alarm in here, went outside. Everyone went outside and was milling around outside. Then my cousin told me she went back in the building, and then the events occurred.
So the fire alarm was pulled at Watts.
The fire alarm was pulled at Watts, is my understanding, according to my cousin. I don't want to. SEANCODY.
This is Sean Cody from Akron. So then the events occurred. The events being whatever this explosion was.
Yeah.
That you
So
heard, followed by
followed by 3 gunshots. So some kind of explosion sound. Like, I heard that there was cars being driven into people. Like, I'm sure you all know, you've heard that. It could have been that, but I'm pretty confident it was one loud, like, bang, people running, gray cloud. I thought it was dust because I thought something fell over, but then after the gunshots, it was like, oh no, that was an explosion. That was probably a bomb.
Okay, because one of the stories that we're hearing is that people may have been struck by a car. That's not something you saw.
That's not something I saw. It could have happened. That bang I heard could have been the car hitting something after running through people, hitting a wall. Like, I don't know for certain.
Okay.
But yeah. Sure.
Thanks, son.
So, Ellie, that was a student by the name of Sean Cody who witnessed some of the events, or heard some of the events and witnessed some of the events from this vantage point, which is about where we've been all morning. So that adds some additional intrigue to all of this. What he thought was an explosion may have been the car. We just don't know.
Ted, we dipped in on that live report just as he was about halfway through his analysis of what unfolded there. Could you recap for us what he said? I heard him say the fire alarm, they thought that was the assailant, but wasn't sure.
Hey, take a look behind me, Ellie. You can get a sense that the alert has now been lifted, and now you can see students are coming out of the building. Anyway, yeah, Sean Cody from Akron, student, his take on this, and this is partly what he saw, and then partly what he has heard from a friend and a relative inside Watts Hall, was that someone pulled the fire alarm inside Watts Hall. Students inside evacuated the building, and it was after that then that there was some kind of noise, an explosion of some sort, or perhaps a car hitting something. We don't know. He doesn't know. And then he says he heard 3 gunshots. And beyond that, he said then people were just, well, as soon as they heard the bang, the explosion, he said people were running in all directions. Must have been pure chaos. And then after that, that's when he heard the 3 gunshots. So that's what another witness tells us.
All right, Ted, thank you. As we piece this together, and police do as well, we appreciate that. I want to mention this. We just received a statement from the city of Columbus. This is a statement from Mayor Andrew Ginther on what has unfolded there at The Ohio State University this morning. He writes, as the situation at The Ohio State University unfolds, we lift up the victims and the first responders in our thoughts and prayers. And we ask for students and university employees to continue to follow instructions of Ohio State authorities. That comes from the mayor's office, Mayor Andrew Ginther here in Columbus. We had just heard from the Buckeye alert had been lifted, shelter in place lifted, and the scene is now secure. That's the latest word from OSU police. They do add, though, that the area around 19th Avenue and College Avenue is closed. And they have a list of buildings closed and additional information on their website, but they are saying that that area is closed. That is exactly where we just heard from Professor David Wood, who described a scene, a dead body on the ground there that he said that he has seen there since this first unfolded. And the yellow tape replaced with red tape as police continue to work in that area. They also add that classes have been canceled for the rest of the day. And on Facebook, there is an option to mark yourself as safe. now for this violent situation in Columbus. I'm sure there are many parents out there hoping to hear from their children and make sure they are safe. A scene that we've been watching since this first broke is that parking garage. That's where SWAT went in, pulled two men out within the last hour. We have Rick Reitzel there live. And Rick, what can you tell us about what is unfolding there now?
Well, you can tell they're dialing things back here now. You said the student alert or the shelter in place is gone. We've seen a lot of evidence of that. We saw a lot of students moving. You can see them up about a block or two. And we've seen SWAT officers coming out of this parking garage we've talked about. Now, they're still down here on the corner. We're not really sure whether they have another suspect in mind, but they have been coming down out of that building, just a regular progression of SWAT officers, and we've seen them. They're still on the corners watching this garage. So although this alert is lifted and the shelter in place is lifted, they still have been bringing, I'm assuming, their students out of this garage, and they're usually just walking them out and letting them go. So far as we know, still just the two suspects have been arrested, but there could possibly still be someone in the building or something in the building that they are keeping a close eye on. I'm seeing a lot of officers walking out, but I'm still seeing a lot of them also that are just kind of standing there waiting. We're not sure what on, but there is something of value inside of this parking garage on Tuttle Park and Neal that they're keeping a very close watch on. And we're not talking about just uniformed officers. We're talking about officers in SWAT uniforms and SWAT vehicles, which are still stationed here. So there's still something active going on in this garage. Ellie?
Rick, when they're walking students out, and those students or staff or whomever is inside, they've been in there throughout this entire situation, right?
Yeah, LJ and I was talking about how frightening that must have been to be in your vehicle or sheltered behind a vehicle in this garage, knowing that there's active shooters in the garage. And they were in there, I'm guessing it could have been at least an hour, maybe even longer, hiding out in this garage. We don't know on what floors, but I've seen probably a half a dozen students and staff they have brought out and let go that were in there for the bulk of the time.
Yeah, they had probably just shown up there to go about their day on a Monday morning, going to class, and surprised by this news, certainly, and then very frightening to be in that parking garage as this all unfolded. Rick, thank you very much. We'll free you up so that you can gather more information. And I want to get back to Olivia Fecto, who was closer to Watts Hall and has been on the scene since this first broke as well. What are you seeing there, Olivia?
Yeah, Allie, with the shelter in place alert now lifted, there are some things that still look about the same here. You can see the scene is still taped off all surrounding Watts Hall, which is the building across the street from where we are right now. We are on West Woodruff and College Avenue. As was mentioned earlier, the shelter in place alert has now been lifted, but 19th and College remains closed here. All classes have now been canceled for the day, and Watts Hall is one of the buildings that the Department of Public Safety here at the university says will remain closed. While this all is still a very active scene, we do want to show you there are a lot of students now who are walking around who have come out of these buildings now that they're no longer being asked to shelter in place. It's really a sharp contrast from what we saw, just 20 minutes ago. Before that alert was lifted, there was no one out here with the exception of maybe a couple of dozen students who were standing here at the crime scene tape just watching what was going on. As soon as that alert was lifted and people started coming out of the buildings, now we've seen people walking, people on their phones talking to probably loved ones, people on their phones taking photos and videos of everything that is going on here on campus. Again, the law enforcement presence, though, is still very active. So while people are out of the buildings, many of them are still standing around here watching all that is going on. The police helicopter is still circling overhead, and of course officers here on the scene and medics are still here on the scene as this continues and as this area here at 19th and College remains closed off. Ellie.
Yeah, in that area, 19th and College, that is the area where we heard from Professor David Wood a few moments ago, describe the scene that he saw unfold there in that area, and that there is, he said, a dead body covered with a sheet now, and that is where police are actively working. Just to recap for you, we've had a very busy morning on the Ohio State University campus. A Buckeye alert came in as an active shooter situation. That was around 10 o'clock. Put in a shelter in place at Watts Hall, and then two scenes unfolded there at Watts Hall where multiple victims were taken to hospitals, but also the parking garage where SWAT officers from the Columbus Police Department had it surrounded and then arrested two men, took them into custody after a long standoff there, at least a situation where they surrounded the entire parking garage and then went in methodically to search. So they've lifted this shelter in place. They've lifted this Buckeye alert now, but still a very large police presence there on the Ohio State University campus. And to let you know, this is the North Campus area. That parking garage was just near Lane. It was just north of the Blackwell Hotel off Tuttle Park in Neal Avenue. Watts Hall at 19th and College and Woodruff, where we have several reporters who've been there since this story first broke. We know there are multiple victims, at least 8. One of them is in critical condition. 4 were taken to the OSU Wexner Medical Center. We've had Dan Perlman there bringing us updates on how those victims are doing. Others were taken to other area hospitals. But the shelter in place has been lifted, and that is certainly good news to hear that the scene is secure, that there is a lot of work to do here today as police try to piece together what unfolded and how these victims are doing now. These are additional live pictures coming to you from that area near Watts Hall, where it is still blocked off. 19th and College is blocked off as police work this case. And we also know that the classes at OSU on the Columbus campus are canceled for the rest of the day, which seems important for many of those students we heard from who were scared, wondering what was happening on their campus. Many ran from Watts Hall if they were able to get away. Others stayed shelter in place in Watts Hall. We heard from one gentleman who said that his girlfriend was there in a bathroom at Watts Hall for more than an hour, just sheltering in place, staying in there until police could get to her. And I think that was likely the case for many people inside Watts Hall as they sheltered in place. We do want to go to, we're hearing from many witnesses now as they're able to come out and talk about what unfolded. We just heard from one witness, and let's listen in.
The explosion was from our perspective to the right of it, like right near this building, which I think is, what is that?
That's Watts.
Yeah, from like, it was like right near Watts, like in the, like the
Like
shadow
kind of
that.
on this side of Watts?
No. Around the corner here.
Okay, around the corner, okay.
So like inside that little area, and then the gunshot sounded from the same general area. My initial thought was maybe to the left, but that could have been echoes. I have no idea exactly where, but definitely.
You heard 3 shots.
3 gunshots.
Outside the building. And then what'd you hear?
Nothing. Like there was already a cop car there, like right in that intersection.
Did people run?
Oh yeah. So like when that first, what I now think is an explosion, but I thought was something falling over, a large cloud. When that first happened, there was like a bunch of people there. My understanding, I have family that was in that building, is that they pulled the fire alarm. So there's a crowd of people outside, presumably because of the fire alarm. Like, don't be careful. Like, there's some speculation there, but there's a crowd of people out there, and it looked like they were all around something. And so I thought they were all helping put something up or all looking at something. And then the bang, the dust cloud, some shouting, like screaming, and people just booking it in every direction. 30 seconds, a minute later, the 3 gunshots.
Oh, so after they started to run.
Yeah, they were booking it from whatever the sound was.
So they were coming this way?
Yeah, people were running this way, people were going across the street, people were running down College, and then the gunshots happened.
What were you doing at the time? Where were you coming from?
I was being late to getting into class into here. So I had walked from the bus stop in front of ARPS, walked to this corner, like cut across here, was walking, and it was about exactly where we're standing when it happened. It was probably not like 9:48 pretty much, because my class was at 9:45. I got off the bus at around 9:47 because I was looking because I was late for class. So it would have been 9:48, 9:49, something like that.
What did you do when you saw the commotion? What did you do?
So I went inside the class to like tell everyone what happened, and that's when like the alerts and like people were saying, the building managers were saying, you know, shelter in place.
That was a witness who was inside Watts Hall at the time and was sharing what unfolded as he heard this all happen. I want to just mention we had seen SWAT officers from Columbus Police surrounding the parking garage there, and at all times police had positioned us and moved us back, and we followed those orders, and we do that because we care very much about the safety of all involved, especially the officers there. And so when they tell us to move back, we listen to them. So we're not putting their position in jeopardy in any way. That is important to our field crews and those of us here back in the studio. I understand we have a live interview about to unfold. We are expecting to hear from OSU President Michael Drake any moment, but now let's listen in to this woman.
Scanners going on the computer, listening to the police scanners, and people calling in. My brother is a sheriff, so I've been, texting with him, finding out what was going on through him. He honestly, at the time, didn't know as much as anybody else knew, but so.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rachel, just one quick second, because we just came live to this. So could I just get you to kind of recount again? You went outside for a fire drill, and you were just going back inside.
We were just going back inside, and we heard the shooting and the yelling and the place erupting into chaos. And by the time we got up to our window to look out to see what was going on, the cops were already on scene, running down because they were already here for the fire drill. And but it was several moments of chaos.
And you then did what?
We barricaded ourselves in our rooms, which we're supposed to, since it was right outside our door, and just hunkered down, kept an eye on Facebook, kept an eye on the news, texted people. We all have friends in the entire area. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? So just keeping an eye on each other.
And what was kind of going through your head at that point?
This isn't real. This isn't real. But, we're an enormous campus, and it was bound to happen one day. Just horrible that it did.
And you were saying as you were leaving, you're not allowed to get to your van.
No, my van is, my van is right next to where the shootings happened, so I'm not allowed to move my van for probably, they said, for at least 24 hours.
And as you came out a few minutes ago, you saw that there's still a body there.
There was a body there about an hour ago. We came out the other side of the building. So.
Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
Much. What was your name again, please?
Rachel Lemaster.
Spell Lemaster if you want.
L-E.
Rachel Lemaster. She's an employee, she says, of the chemical engineering department as an advisor. And that's her version of her account, and it pretty well gels with what we're hearing from other witnesses that are now coming out of the buildings. Ellie?
Thank you. We appreciate your reporting and hearing from her as well on what unfolded. I'm joined now by my co-anchor, Mike Jackson, who is in now to walk us through and continue our coverage.
I think, Ellie, the most interesting thing was from that last witness, that last interview, who said, something like this was bound to happen. I think it's very sad in our society that we prepare for things like this, but unfortunately, things like these things do occur, and with a campus with more than 60,000 people, unfortunately, it happened here in Ohio State.
Prepare on campuses and workplaces and schools as well. I'm a mother, and I remember the first time my daughter told me that they prepare for these active shooter situations, and I thought, oh, that is a sad state that we are there, but they prepare, and police responded.
What an incredible, incredible Monday. Of course, there's a statement from the mayor, Mayor Ginther, concerning this shooting. We'd like to take that right now. Again, this is a statement from the mayor where he says, at the situation, as the situation at The Ohio State University unfolds. We lift up the victims and the first responders in our thoughts and prayers. Also, we ask for students and university employees to continue to follow instructions from The Ohio State University authorities. Very important as the authorities try to make sure that everything on the campus, it is calm and it is safe and it is normal for a regular routine to continue on that campus.
We've been following the very latest from OSU police on what they put out. That original Buckeye alert was now almost 2 hours ago. And it was about 20 minutes ago that they had said the shelter in place lifted, the scene is secure. But moving forward, they still have areas that are blocked off, 19th and College blocked off, so that they can work this scene there on the Ohio State University campus. You're also seeing live pictures as we continue to bring you those from Chopper 4 over this parking garage, which has been the scene where SWAT moved in.
And of course, we'd like to get more now from the campus. And we have Olivia Fecto, who is live with the very latest on the OSU campus. Olivia, what can you tell us?
Yeah, we're at the corner of 19th and, College and Woodruff. We're about a block away from 19th and College, which is the area that remains closed off at this point, though that shelter in place alert has been lifted. We have seen, a lot of students, a lot of people in this area who were released from buildings after that shelter in place was lifted. About 5 minutes ago, we saw a group of people come out of Watts Hall, the engineering building. We've seen SWAT officers still around this area. People have tried to ask officers if they're able to walk through this area at this point, and they are being told no, they've got to go around to other areas. Just a little while ago, before that shelter in place was lifted, this area was pretty close to deserted. I mean, we saw maybe a couple of dozen students who were out here standing behind the police tape watching everything that was going on. At this point, you can see there are a lot more students out here. There's still a police helicopter flying overhead, still an active scene here. Even though that shelter in place alert has been lifted, we've heard students standing around here. Of course, now that classes are canceled, some of them still saying they've got work to do, but after everything that's gone on this morning, they're hesitant to leave this area. They don't really know what exactly is going on, and are still concerned about, about what's happened here, about the safety of fellow students, college employees, and they are continuing to stand out here and watch and wait and see what exactly continues to go on. There are still emergency vehicles, still medics and SWAT team and police cruisers here on the scene. Again, 19th and College Avenue is one of the areas that remains closed off right now, as well as several of the buildings in this area, including Watts Hall.
Olivia, thank you for that update there. Since we're just getting over the noon hour, just an update. We have multiple injuries from this situation on the Ohio State University campus this morning. We know that several people are in stable condition, one in critical condition. Some of those victims are at the OSU Wexner Medical Center, which is where we have NBC4's Dan Perlman to bring us a live report there. Dan?
Hey, Ellie, just within the last 30 minutes or so, we've seen a big increase in both foot and road traffic here outside of the Wexner Medical Center. Take a look. You can see a couple of police cars parked out front. One thing we are expecting here very shortly is OSU President Michael Drake expected to address this situation here. We were told he would be here in about 30 minutes. That was about 20 minutes or so ago. I can tell you word here from OSU is 4 of the victims have been taken to the Wexner Medical Center. All of those men and women here do have non-life-threatening injuries. The hospital itself is operating under normal conditions, but again, 4 of the victims brought here with non-life-threatening injuries. At this point, we are just waiting on President Drake to arrive, address the situation, give us his take on what is happening here, and of course, all of the information that he can share with us. Ellie?
All right, Dan, we appreciate your report there, and we will take that statement live from OSU President Michael Drake as soon as that unfolds.
The one thing that's so interesting about this whole situation, Ellie, is that it wasn't that long ago there was a situation on campus at the Wexner Center for the Arts. And as that situation unfolded, of course, university police, they do have a plan in place for situations like this. So although you never want to see anything like this happen, they are prepared for situations like this, for what the next step would be. And as I recall that day and the way the university was able to effectively handle that along with Columbus police, it's almost like a rehearsal for situations like this as well. So at least they're prepared for it.
Oh, prepared, and they train very well. You're right about that, Mike. What we're waiting to hear now is an official statement from OSU police on the victims and how they are doing and the extent of their injuries, but also what unfolded and individuals that they have in custody. We had seen SWAT take 2 men into custody from the parking garage there on the north side of campus that they had surrounded for quite a while. But we're waiting to hear from them on exactly what unfolded. We've been hearing from witnesses a few different stories. Some had heard gunshots, others heard the fire alarm go off and people exit. Many have said that this car ran into a group of people there at Watts Hall, and the original Buckeye alert went out as an active shooter situation. We know that one person is dead there outside 19th and College. That is where we heard Professor David Wood share with us what he was seeing, and that was indeed an individual there dead or from early on in this situation. And so we're waiting to hear from Columbus Police and OSU Police on exactly what has unfolded in the last 2 hours.
About an hour and 45 minutes passed from the first time that the Buckeye Alert active shooter warning was issued on campus for people to shelter into place. About an hour and 45 minutes passed before Ohio State University said the shelter in place warning had been lifted, and they determined the scene was secure. That followed reports of that active shooter, or at least, or actually those 7 people being injured. And of course, all the classes have been canceled for the remainder of the day at Ohio State University. The school also warning students in a series of tweets earlier today about the active shooter on campus, and they should run, hide, or fight. Once again, this was lifted just about 35 minutes ago. The Columbus Fire Department says that 7 people were later taken to the hospital. 2 of those people were unstable. No details on the other 5 people. Of course, this remains a very active investigation, although the active shooter phase on campus has been canceled. You can imagine that the police department will continue this investigation for all of the rest of the maybe this afternoon and probably through this evening as they continue to gather more details. And there are a lot of people they still need to speak with, a lot of witnesses. You know, Ellie talked about how so much of this occurred after the fire alarm was pulled. Of course, there's a lot of confusion about that, but that does seem to be a major point of when the events seem to occur here on campus. So police want to talk to all of those people before they're able to complete this investigation.
We want to go back to Ted Hart, who has been outside Watts Hall since this all unfolded, since this story first broke. Ted, what do you have now?
Well, Ellie, we are getting a chance to talk to some of the people, students and staff who were inside the buildings for the last hour and a half, 2 hours while this all unfolded, sheltering in place inside some of these buildings. And you know, this was a very frightening situation. What they describe here, they heard gunshots, they heard chaos, screaming. They saw people running in all different directions. One student described hearing what sounded like an explosion. We've heard from others that you know, there was a car that ran into people. So we're still trying to piece this together and waiting kind of for the official version of what happened here. But collectively, this was a terrifying morning for an awful lot of people over here as this all unfolded. As one woman described, said to us, you know, this. You hear about this happening, but not here, not here. You don't expect this to happen at Ohio State, even though this is a big place, a big campus, and these things happen. So, but really, all of these people describing just what a chaotic situation this was, and how terrifying it was, and how relieved they are now that it's over, but still very much shaken up. Some of them saw the body that apparently was lying outside the building, Some have said that they think that was a suspect, a gunman. We don't know yet. So.
University campus.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying thank you for your reporting throughout this, and we'll free you up so that you can gather new information and talk to others as soon as we can. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, there's so many people here involved, and a lot of people saw different things. Here now is a soundbite from one of the witnesses from the events of earlier today.
And tell us what you saw.
I didn't see anything. We heard the chaos, shouts, screams, shots, that kind of thing. I guess there was a car involved. I never saw the car. We never heard the car. So I don't know if that was part of 19th Avenue or not. But
where were you inside?
Right out up second floor above the chaos in Cofalt. Yes.
What do you do here?
I work for engineering advising. So we were in the chemical engineering building.
What did you think when all this was going down?
It's not real. You go numb. It's not supposed to happen. Sorry. So yeah, it's scary. It was really scary. We barricaded ourselves in our rooms like we were taught. Turned off our lights, and just hunkered down, but, kept looking out the window, seeing what was going on. And my van, I have handicap parking, so my van is stuck there for the next day or two because I'm not allowed to move it. But, so.
What did you see? What did the scene look like to you?
Chaos, people running. By the time we really got a good look, the cops were already running. The cops were already under control, and the shooting had already happened. But a lot of running, a lot of people running.
Ma'am, where were you at the time? Were you in Watts or
Fontana, right next to the old Cofalt, right next to the shootings.
what's it called?
Old Cofalt. It's the chemical engineering building.
Did you see any victims?
I went to ask if I could move my van, and there's a body outside the loading dock. I guess I'm under the idea that it was one of the shooters. So yeah, there's a victim.
What is your name, please?
My name is Rachel Lemaster.
Spell your last name.
Lemaster.
Thank you.
What is your occupation? What do you do?
I work for engineering advising.
Okay.
So.
Rachel, do you remember about what time it all changed?
No, we were outside for maybe 20 minutes with the fire drill. So I don't remember looking at my watch or anything. It's just chaos.
What did the chaos sound like?
Screaming, yelling, and then all of a sudden just the cops were there very quickly. Thumbs up to the cops, very, very quick. Of course, they were already here because of the fire drill, so.
So it was a planned fire drill?
I'm not going to say that. It's just, we're never told if there's, we're never given a heads up. We're going to have a fire drill. So
But you were back inside already.
we had walked through the loading dock and gotten back inside when it happened. So no, I didn't witness the actual shootings, just the aftermath.
And you were hunkered down with a number of other people?
I had 3 other my coworkers, yes.
Were you communicating with the outside world some?
Facebook. We had the scanners going on the computer, listening to the police scanners, and people calling in. My brother is a sheriff, so I've been, texting with him, finding out what was going on through him. He honestly, at the time, didn't know as much as anybody else knew, but so.
Rachel Lemaster, one of the witnesses, recalling a Monday that she will never forget. She described the chaotic scene and the screams that were heard. Of course, this was after the fire alarm was pulled when everyone was outside. And she also, in limited detail, also described how she went to get her van, but she's unable to move her van, or at least at that point, because there was a body there near her vehicle.
And that will remain for a while because 19th and College is closed off, continues to be. We're hearing from so many people who reached out to loved ones. Professor David Wood told me earlier today that his first call was to his wife, and prayers for OSU trending now on Twitter. People reaching out to make sure their loved ones are okay. We have Olivia Fecto there live as well, and she's been talking to many students who were rightfully scared when this all unfolded, not sure what to do besides follow the Buckeye alert.
Yeah, Ellie, I just talked to a student who told me that Buckeye alert was really what they relied on during the entire shelter in place. If you take a look over here, this student told me he was in Scott Lab, which is a building just beyond Watts Hall, which is the engineering building we've been talking about all throughout this. He said that he was in class at the time that Buckeye alert came through, and he said he spent, about 2 hours in that lab. He said that, he had heard in other buildings students were being, herded to different parts of the building or detained. He said in his building, no one was detained them or telling them what to do. They were relying on, those campus alerts that said to stay in place. And he said that during that time they were, in a room that had just swipe access. And so he said he really didn't feel unsafe. Of course, this is a situation that has made many of the students we've talked to today feel very unsafe. That student said that, about 2 hours into that time that he was in Scott Lab with other people in that room. He said eventually they got the alert saying that the shelter in place had been lifted and they were able to come out of the building. He said he lives off campus, but he is still over here in this area. 19th and College, of course, is still closed down. While that shelter in place has been lifted, I've been talking a little bit with a student who attends Ohio State, who was a former intern at our station, and he said that while the shelter in place alert was sent out, he said where he is, there are still students who are being told to get back or to get back inside. So it obviously depends on what area of campus, what area of North Campus that these students and people are on right now. Where we are, some of the crowds have dissipated a little bit, but there are still a few dozen students standing out here watching what's going on here at 19th and College. Again, we've talked to a few people here today who said that throughout all of this, as this started unfolding, they saw people running across campus. We talked to a woman who's a chef at the building, the campus cafe next to where we are. She said that when it all started, she saw people running, and that was what initially cued her to the possibility that something was going on here on campus. When we first arrived on campus a couple of hours ago, over off of Lane Avenue near a parking garage, we were told to stay out of the area. People were told to get back, to stay out of that area, and we did see people running across Lane Avenue. At first we thought it was just a few students, and then we did see probably a couple of dozen people leaving the campus area trying to get to a more secure place as they were directed by law enforcement. Again, we are continuing to talk to some of the students who were out here who were in these buildings while this was all going on, people who have been standing around watching as this all happened, and we will bring you the latest as soon as we talk to those people.
Already, Olivia Fecto reporting live. As we mentioned before, the Buckeye alert, it has been lifted, but campus remains a very busy place. Our continuing coverage now with Dan Perlman, who is live on campus with more information. Dan?
Hey, Mike, here outside of the Wexner Medical Center, we hear from OSU that 4 of the patients involved in this have been taken to the hospital, all of them with non-life-threatening condition. Now, the foot traffic and the road traffic surrounding this area has definitely picked up within the last hour or so. One thing we are waiting on is OSU President Michael Drake. He is expected here literally any moment to address this situation on campus. But again, 4 victims taken to the hospital. The hospital is operating under what is being called, quote, normal operations. So everything seems to be moving as normal here at the hospital. But again, a very difficult day for a lot of people, a very busy day. Again, 4 of the victims brought here. We now wait for President Michael Drake to address us here momentarily.
Dan, thank you. We appreciate that update there from the OSU Wexner Medical Center. As Dan mentioned, we're waiting to hear from OSU President Michael Drake, and we will carry that for you live as soon as he steps out. Also, an update from Upper Arlington schools. They had been placed on lockdown as this all unfolded. That lockdown has been lifted, and they are resuming their normal operations there at Upper Arlington schools. You are looking at live pictures still as this all unfolds for us right now. We are waiting to hear from police on exactly what happened here in the last 2.5 hours now since the original Buckeye alert went out. But we are hearing from witnesses on a very terrifying scene that unfolded there at the Ohio State University campus this morning.
You know, because of the location of Ohio State University, it's basically landlocked around the city of Columbus. So the fact that the Upper Arlington School District would react is not surprising at all, considering the close proximity it has to the campus of the Ohio State University. So that is not a surprise at all. And of course, Ellie, as we know, so much of what happens on the campus of Ohio State directly impacts the city of Columbus. With, you know, more than 60,000 students, one of the larger universities in the country, it is a city in itself.
And we just got an update from the Associated Press on the injuries that these victims have. We know 8 were taken to hospitals. We had heard 1 was in critical condition, but we know the injuries now are results of their stab wounds and the result of being hit by a vehicle, which fits with what we were hearing from witnesses. Several students had stepped out to say that they had seen a car run through a group of people there outside Watts. And so now that we're hearing about these injuries, they're being confirmed that they're stab wounds and injuries from being hit by a vehicle.
There are so many witnesses that police need to interview as they, you know, try to put, you know, all of this together from the very beginning, including the injuries and how those injuries were obtained, and of course what happened after that. And we've already heard from many witnesses who described what was just an horrific scene. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, as you can imagine, just pure chaos in that particular situation. And as we reported earlier, you know, this is a situation that unfortunately we prepare for in today's society. And the Columbus Police and the Ohio State University Police reacted in the way that, of course, the university planned in a situation like this. And hopefully those efforts cut down on potential injuries and fatalities in this developing story.
And just to be clear, the latest from OSU Police, they have that shelter in place has been lifted. I'll get back to that in a moment. But I understand Olivia Fecto is speaking with a witness now, if we can listen in on that.
Okay, they're going to take us in just a second.
Yeah, Olivia, can you hear us? Go right ahead.
Yeah, Ellie, I can. I'm here with Nikhil, who was in one of the buildings just down the road there. I'm going to let him explain what he heard and saw throughout the course of this. Can you tell me again which building you were in?
So I was in CBEC on the topmost floor. It was really safe. And so from what I saw and what I heard, of course, a man triggered a fire alarm, and when students evacuated the building, he started slashing at them with a knife, and the police are calling it a machete. And soon enough, the cops showed up and shot him down. He was still lying over there, and that's pretty much what I saw. But I mean, there were further rumors, of course, about a car being there as well, and then the fact that a man in a car drove near people and tried attacking them from a car. So, yeah.
From where you were in the building, can you just describe, you know, what you heard, what you saw when you were in there? I mean, were there any sounds that you heard, or any police? You mentioned seeing the dead body on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, we were all stuck inside a building. We didn't have concrete facts. It was just, you know, what we saw and then what we heard from the others. At the time, the police weren't too keen on divulging what exactly happened. They kind of just wanted us to stay safe. But like I said, there were 1 or 2 people inside a car, and they tried running over people, and then apparently a man jumped out of the car and started slashing at people with a machete. And that's pretty much all we saw over there. And I think that's where a couple of people were injured. So,
how long ago did they let you get out of that building, and what was the process like to get out?
So I went in, and about 10 minutes later, there was an entire lockdown. When I went in, the building was open, and 10 minutes later, they shut down the entire building. And as I recall, they shut down many buildings in that area. They wouldn't let me out, and I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, so they did shut down the entire building. They locked it from outside, made sure no one could get in. It was a good move on Ohio State's part. We were very safe over there.
Thank you very much for talking to us. I appreciate it. And as you just heard, he was in one of the buildings nearby during that lockdown. He mentioned that he saw the suspect's body on the ground outside. Of course, he is out of that building now. Now that the shelter in place has for the most part been lifted, we will continue to talk to more students out here and get you their stories as soon as we have them.
All right. Thanks so much, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate all your reporting out there. We have several crews, Olivia Fecto and Ted Hart, both live near Watts Hall, and then Rick Reitzel has been monitoring the situation over at the parking garage where 2 men were taken into custody by SWAT officers about an hour and a half ago now.
A little more insight from the witness who basically walked Olivia through it, saying that it was after the fire alarm was pulled by that one person that he described a slashing motion as they were cutting people, and then also talked about the vehicle involved and perhaps 2 or 3 people in the vehicle, and he described it as a machete as they were slashing people. So that's just one of many interviews that of course police need to conduct as they put all of this together to try to figure out how and all of this really, how it happened and why it happened.
And that's not the first time we've heard the word machete used. We heard from many other witnesses earlier on. Ted Hart had spoken with a few people who were there on the scene, but also some others who were communicating with loved ones inside, and they were hearing the word machete used as well. Let's get back to Ted Hart live there. What can you tell us now, Ted?
Well, just trying to kind of piece together what folks are telling us, people who were inside the building, people who saw pieces of this or parts of this or have spoken to folks who witnessed some of this. So one of the versions we heard was that somebody pulled the fire alarm. I just spoke to somebody who was in the building in one of the labs. It was a sensor in one of the labs, apparently, that was faulty and went off. But as is the practice, when the alarms go off inside, you evacuate the building, and that's what they did. And they had evacuated many of them out here on what you're looking at, the 19th Street side of Watts Hall at College. And at some point, he describes a gray car. This gentleman I spoke to describes that a gray car apparently came northbound on College, made the turn onto 19th, and then barreled into a number of people who were standing outside. And then the car came to a rest, he says, and the person inside the car jumped out with a machete and started swinging the machete. And then some minutes later, he believes the gunshots that were heard were police shooting that suspect then a little further down 19th. So that's yet another kind of version, or with some additional detail of what may have transpired here. We've heard from a number of folks who've been holed up in these buildings for the last couple of hours and just got out here once the all clear was given half hour, 45 minutes ago, however long it's been.
Right, Ted, thank you. The latest that we had heard from OSU police, they still have several buildings that are closed until further notice. While the shelter in place has been lifted and the scene is secure, law enforcement are continuing to investigate, and they say there'll be a visible presence on campus, which we have seen throughout the last 2.5 hours here. All academic classes on the Columbus campus have been canceled, and faculty and staff in certain buildings can only go home. I want to mention the building closures. CBEC, which is the one right there we heard from Professor David Wood, had been inside for quite some time. And then 19th Avenue, Old Cocroft, McQuigg, Watts, Fontana, Smith, McPherson, Celeste, Newman, Wolfram Lab, Evans, Arps Hall, and Ramsmeyer, along with the East Regional Chilled Water building. So there are several buildings on campus that are still considered closed, on lockdown partially, as police go through and make sure they're secure and everyone is okay, and get things back in the how they would be a regular
as
day.
normal as possible,
Yeah.
right? Also, Ellie, there's heavy police presence at the Lane Avenue garage, and of course, if any of your midday travels involve anything near the campus, you're encouraged to avoid that area. In fact, traffic is being diverted away from the campus area. So anywhere around the Lenox area or anywhere close to OSU, please try to avoid that area as emergency crews try to complete their investigation, make sure that everyone is safe, and try to have things return to a normacy level, at least as normal as possible.
And we still have, these are live pictures from Chopper 4 over the parking garage. This is at Tuttle Park Place and Neal Avenue. It's just north of the Blackwell Inn. And I know many people know that area. So that's a large parking garage that SWAT had surrounded today, and that is where two men were taken out in custody. And then individuals have been allowed to come out. So they've been going through, and people who were just happened to be in there on a Monday morning, going to the parking garage and are stuck in there throughout all of this, SWAT surrounding the building. And we're going to look at this video again. This is video when SWAT officers around, must have been around 10:30, 11, they took these individuals out of that parking garage. Once they had it secured, they were able to bring other people out who were stuck in there and scared, not knowing what was going on, but knew that there was an emergency situation. These are the two individuals that we shared with you live here on NBC4 who were taken into custody as SWAT came out of that parking garage.
Very young-looking suspects, Ellie. Of course, we'll learn much more in the coming days, perhaps to find out more about a motivation or a possible reason, for this random act today. What type of planning was involved? What motivated these people to do such a thing? Of course, we'll hopefully find out in the next coming days. Of course, police will continue to make sure that the campus, of course, is secure and safe. Of course, classes have been canceled for the remainder of today at Ohio State University for obviously good reasons.
And OSU police had just sent an update saying police continue to process the scene. We expect that'll be for quite some time, but they say to avoid the area between College and Neal, along with Glenn and Woodruff and the Lane Avenue garage. But we've seen traffic is a mess in that area, as you had mentioned. Just steer clear if you can, to be out of the way and to be safe.
Yeah, just to clearly recap, we're at the bottom of the hour now at 12:33. A alert went out on campus a little bit after 10 o'clock. And of course, that's when people were running for cover. People were encouraged to seek shelter. There was a fire alarm that we were told that was pulled. After that, we understand that a person who used, as one witness described rather as a machete, cutting people, slashing people. And of course, we do know that 8 people were taken for treatment. And we also know that one person was apparently shot and killed by Columbus police.
And what is so striking, that original Buckeye alert went out that there was an active shooter situation and told people to run, hide, and fight.
Very scary.
And they've made it through this point now as they continue this investigation. We have Olivia Fecto, who's live on campus and has been speaking with a lot of students about what unfolded for them as this happened. Olivia?
Yeah, Ellie, we've been talking to a lot of students who were sheltered in place in some of these buildings near Watts Hall as this was all going on. We did just speak live just a few minutes ago to a student named Nikhil, who is a sophomore, who said he was in CBEC, which is one of the buildings a little further down here. It's Koffelt Labs. And he told us about everything that he heard and saw, including seeing that suspect's body out here.
I was in CBEC on the topmost floor. It was really safe. And so from what I saw and what I heard, of course, a man triggered a fire alarm, and when students evacuated the building, he started slashing at them with a knife, and the police are calling it a machete. And soon enough, the cops showed up and shot him down. He was still lying over there, and that's pretty much what I saw. But I mean, there were further rumors, of course, about a car being there as well, and then the fact that a man in a car drove near people and tried attacking them from a car. So, yeah.
From where you were in the building, can you just describe, what you heard, what you saw when you were in there? I mean, were there any sounds that you heard, or any police? You mentioned seeing the dead body on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, we were all stuck inside a building. We didn't have concrete facts. It was just, what we saw and then what we heard from the others. At the time, the police weren't too keen on divulging what exactly happened. They kind of just wanted us to stay safe. Like I said, there were 1 or 2 people inside a car, and they tried running over people, and then apparently a man jumped out of the car and started slashing at people with a machete. And that's pretty much all we saw over there. And I think that's where a couple of people were injured. So,
how long ago did they let you get out of that building, and what was the process like to get out?
So I went in, and about 10 minutes later, there was an entire lockdown. When I went in, the building was open, and 10 minutes later, they shut down the entire building. And as I recall, they shut down many buildings in that area. They wouldn't let me out, and I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, so they did shut down the entire building. They locked it from outside, made sure no one could get in. It was a good move on Ohio State's part. We were very safe over there.
And as you can see here, of course, there is still active law enforcement presence here. A number of those students we talked to were finally allowed to leave their buildings within about the last 30 minutes. We've been watching as a group of police officers and tactical officers have gathered in front of Watts Hall. They were all standing there talking to one another. Looks like the police are planning what their next course of action is here. Again, 19th and College remains closed off. Parts of North Campus are still taped off here with crime scene tape, and we will continue to talk to the students out here and let you know what they saw and heard during this whole situation. Mike and Ellie.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Olivia.
And we're continuing to follow this from many different angles. Since the story first broke, we've had reporters on the scene, Ted Hart and Olivia, as well as Rick Reitzel at that parking garage near Lane Avenue. And we still have Chopper 4 flying above the scene, as well as live pictures from all of the area there.
And of course, this is a very fluid situation. Although we believe that the imminent danger is now past, of course, it's still a very active investigation. There are a lot of people that police need to speak with to try to put all of this together. We know that there's a lot of moving parts in this investigation, as we found out from our reporters who are live at the scene. Every witness seen something a little bit different. And of course, it'll be up to investigators to tie all of that together. And of course, this could be a quite lengthy investigation.
And what a large crime scene you have. You have this parking garage that is at the corner of Tuttle Park in Neal, just south of Lane. But then you have Watts Hall over there at 19th and College, Seebeck. We've heard so many people talking about their experiences inside the Seebeck building as well. And that's a large area for police to go through those buildings, speak to witnesses and anyone who might have seen anything.
I mean, Ohio State University campus, nearly 60,000 students. As I mentioned before, nearly a city within a city, as Ellie talked about. It is physically a large area, a large investigation scene for the police. Several areas that they need to clear. A lot of locations involved in this particular case today. And, you know, it'll also be interesting, Ellie, to hear about the response of how well the Buckeye Alert worked. Unfortunately, we live in a different time where things like this, authorities need to be prepared for. Columbus Division of Police, the Ohio State University Police are prepared for situations like this. It'll be interesting to see what the review is like. But we did hear from witnesses how quickly it seemed that police tried to gain control of these different areas around campus where apparently people's jeopardy was in peril.
And just an update on the victims there from Watts Hall. 8 people were injured. We know that they have stab wounds, and also there are victims with injuries consistent with being hit by a vehicle. That is what the Associated Press was hearing. The victims, some were taken, 4 were taken to the OSU Wexner Medical Center there on campus. Others were taken to area hospitals. We'd originally heard that most were stable. There was 1 in critical condition, but again, the extent of their injuries, they're seeing stab wounds, those bumps and bruises from being hit by a vehicle.
Yeah, it's just more than just the stab wounds involved, Ellie. You're exactly right, and it'll be a while before we actually have the exact accident report, or injury report, I should say, of the victims involved. But I believe that all of them are not in any life-threatening situation this afternoon. Again, this is a very active situation on the campus of Ohio State University as police try to gather all of the information into this incident that occurred. 8 people all injured. We believe the injuries are not life-threatening. 1 person, we believe one of the assailants was killed by Columbus police during this situation on campus on what's been a very, very busy Monday.
I just want to get in a statement here from the Ohio State University. It was just sent here in the last few minutes. The Ohio State University police and local law enforcement continue to respond to a public safety incident on Ohio State's campus. A suspect has been shot and reported deceased. Victim injuries include stab wounds. injury by motor vehicle, and other injuries that are being evaluated. At the recommendation of law enforcement, campus alerts for shelter in place have been lifted. Campus remains open during the continued investigation, although classes have been canceled for the remainder of the day. Facts are still being verified. We will hold a media briefing as soon as we are able to do that. Again, this is from the Ohio State University. There's a statement coming out right now. The university will continue to share information through Buckeye Alert and emergency OSU.edu, and our top priority remains the safety and security of our campus community. Our thoughts and prayers are with those injured and their families. So again, the OSU police and the Ohio State University saying that a suspect has been shot and reported deceased, which we have been reporting. We had heard that from other sources as well. Victim injuries, stab wounds, and injuries from motor vehicle accidents there.
Most of us will never be in a situation like this, but the victims that we have spoken with, the witnesses we have spoken with, have set high marks to Columbus Police and campus police for their actions and all of this. I mean, imagine you're in the situation, you are terrified. You don't know what to do. You're trying to follow directions, but you have these people in law enforcement that apparently know exactly what they're doing and apparently were able to handle that situation. And the witness that we spoke with felt very comfortable about the reactions of the emergency crews.
Yeah, we've heard from a few witnesses already who have said they heard or saw something, they knew something was wrong, and almost immediately police were there, Columbus Police, OSU Police were there to give them instruction and relieved by their presence, of course. And OSU Police, still, this will be a long investigation as they try to work through this, thinking how many people are there on campus. But to your point, what a scary situation for them. You get that Buckeye alert that says run, hide, fight.
It's a fear of the unknown, because you don't know what's happening.
We've been through a lot this Monday morning.
Of course, campus classes have been canceled for the remainder of the day. Campus is still open because of the investigation, but the classes have been canceled at Ohio State University quite naturally because of the incident today.
And we are waiting to hear from OSU President Dr. Michael Drake. We had been told that he would step out here sometime in the last hour, but I'm sure he is gathering the information so that he can make a clear and clear statement, an accurate one as well, given what has unfolded on his campus today.
And because of the size of the Ohio State campus and what it means to Columbus, of course, it impacts many aspects. We even heard from Mayor Andrew Ginther, who wished his support and also for the victims, and was praying for everyone who was involved, and of course wanted the emergency personnel to be able to do their thing to complete this investigation. But it's not just a little school. It's a pretty big campus, and it means a lot to Central Ohio.
And as you had mentioned, they train for these situations. They have been in them before many times, where they respond to these reports, and they know what to do. They move in and train very well for these.
Of course, there'll be a lot of witnesses. We take another live look at campus. As we mentioned before, it's a very active scene. You see the crime tape up, and there's crime tape spread throughout campus, as there are several scenes that authorities are investigating this midday. And of course, this investigation will continue throughout this afternoon. There is no really timetable. They want to do a thorough and complete job. There's many people that they need to speak with to put all of these pieces together. We've heard from many witnesses, and everyone's telling a little bit different story. Everyone has a little bit different piece of the puzzle to put together, and of course that'll be the job of investigators to put all of it together as they try to figure out exactly why this thing happened and everything else involved with it.
Just so you know that the shelter in place lifted a while ago, but there's still an active presence there as they investigate. And there are still streets that are blocked off. In fact, OSU police telling us to avoid the area, everyone avoid the area between College and Neal, as well as Glenn and Woodruff. And we've had NBC4's Ted Hart there at Watts Hall since this all unfolded. Ted, I know you've been talking to a lot of witnesses. What are you hearing?
Well, Ellie, we're finally, I think, beginning to piece together what happened here. Let me just step aside and point out this building to the right here a little bit. This is Watts Hall on the right. So an alarm went off inside Watts Hall, and people evacuated from the hall, and many of those people poured out into the area there at 19th and College. And then during that time, a gray car, and we have a photograph now of the gray car still at rest down here, but it came northbound on College and turned left down 19th where these people were standing. The car barreled into a number of people before basically crashing, kind of coming to rest, at which point an individual got out of the car with what at least some folks have described as a machete, and was swinging the machete. A number of folks here, of course, everyone's scattered. They ran in all kinds of different directions. And people here describe how the police were here just like almost instantly. They were here very quickly. And there were gunshots. And it appears as though the individual with the machete was shot by police just down 19th, a block or so. And individuals are telling us that the body is still there at this point, which would not be surprising, I guess, at this point. And that seems to be collectively the best description of what's happened here from witnesses describing what they've seen, what they've heard, and what they've been told from other sources. How to explain the rest of this at the other garage, we're not sure at this point how these other individuals are involved. But as far as what took place here initially, that sounds to be the best information that we have at this point. And again, with that photograph, we now can see the gray car that people have been telling us about that crashed into a number of individuals before crashing into kind of a garden wall, they describe it. I can't quite make it out from the photograph.
Ted, I wanted to ask you.
So it's kind of the latest information we have.
And that's excellent to help us piece this together. But the car is still there, and the body believed to be the individual who was driving the car, shot and killed by police, is still there as well. Correct?
As far as we know, I mean, that's and you folks spoke to the professor who had a view from up above some time ago, and he described that the body was still there. And we have seen a photograph of that as well that suggests that the body is there. So I'm not exactly sure where that is as far as what we're looking at. I don't think it's closest to this corner. I think it maybe is down a building or so. I'm not sure. People describe it as being close to a loading dock. So.
Already, Ted Hart reporting live on
this scene, by the way, Ellie.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah.
This scene, Mike and Ellie, by the way, piece by piece, these pieces of emergency vehicles here are kind of making their way out of here. We're probably half of what we had before in terms of the number of vehicles and personnel that were here. So back to you guys.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Ted Hart, reporting live on campus. Of course, Ted was able to clarify a lot in the situation, and at the same time also let us know that there's still information out there that investigators need to obtain from the other location. But at least he did establish that the fire alarm was pulled. People ran out because of the fire alarm. That's where the vehicle was on, I believe it was 19th or in College, I'm sorry, and then turned onto 19th and plowed right into the people. That's when a guy got out, and as the witnesses described as a machete, began to swing at or slash at people, and that's when the police were there almost immediately to address that situation.
And shot and killed that individual who was driving that car. Just to let you know, we're expecting to hear from OSU President Michael Drake any moment, so we will carry that for you live as soon as he steps out and begins to address this situation. But yes, that's what we heard from Ted there, is that the gray car still there. Police still have an active scene to go through there. The body there as well. And we're going to head out to Dan Perlman, who is at the OSU Wexner Medical Center. He's been reporting on the injuries for the victims, to the victims, and then the president expected to step out.
Yeah, Ellie, I want to actually step out of the way. Right over here, you see that group of doctors and medical staff That is where OSU President Michael Drake is right now, speaking with them. I would assume getting a briefing and providing a briefing on what he knows to them at this hour. We have been waiting for him for the last couple of hours. Word from OSU, 4 of the victims involved in this incident were brought to the OSU Wexner Medical Center. All 4 of those people have non-life-threatening injuries. So again, 4 people brought here. All 4 of them have non-life-threatening injuries. The hospital itself has been operating under normal circumstances really for the last couple of hours or so. So that is good news. Patients can come and go if you can get to campus. However, a lot of roads in the area are shut down. But again, what you are looking at over there is OSU President Michael Drake speaking with doctors and medical staff out here. We have just been told that he is expected to address this situation within the next 5 minutes or so. And of course, we are going to bring that to you live as soon as he steps over here.
Right, Dan, thank you for that report. We want to mention that there were some schools that were on lockdown, Upper Arlington being one of them. That lockdown has been lifted. They're back to normal operations there, but had been on lockdown as this situation was unfolding.
And of course, as Dan mentioned, 4 of those people are being treated at OSU Wexner Hospital. Their injuries are non-life-threatening. The other 4 are transported to another location. We do not have their condition at this time.
So we are expecting to hear from OSU police as well as President Drake there at the OSU Wexner Medical Center. We just heard from Ted and offered some new insight onto what unfolded there on campus, that there was a fire alarm. Students left that building at Watts Hall. That's when this vehicle, a gray car, came plowing into them. And that's what we're hearing, is that the injuries are related to being struck by a vehicle as well as stab wounds. Now, he mentioned that this individual driving the car then got out with some type of knife, and they're describing it as a machete. We have not heard that from police, but witnesses, many of them, have said that this was a machete and started attacking people there. And that's when police responded, and they were firm in saying that police got there right away.
Of course, Ellie, the thoughts right now are with those who are injured and also the other witnesses and everyone else on campus, and even the emergency personnel in this situation. But, you know, what people want to know is why? Why did this occur? What was the motivation? What drove these individuals to commit such an act? Hopefully, you know, we'll find out more as police were able to take in 2 of those 3 people. We see Dr. Drake walking up with the doctors now. We're assuming that he's going to address the media. If you can look quite closely to the picture to the right, that's the silver vehicle that apparently was involved in the situation between College and 19th.
So that's the vehicle there, and we're expecting President Drake he was just stepping forward there, and the video froze. I know we're trying to get that shot back up for you so that we can bring that to you live as soon as he just stepped forward.
Dr. Drake was receiving information from the medical personnel at the OSU Wexner Center, obviously trying to get as much information that he can concerning the victims before he addresses the news media. It's been a very busy day for everyone involved, including President Drake on this Monday.
And he is there at the OSU Wexner Medical Center, where we know 4 victims are with non-life-threatening injuries. We've heard those are injuries from being hit by the vehicle, as well as some type of stab wounds, slashing from the machete that was there on campus.
And there are several crime scenes involved. Of course, this will be a lengthy investigation from the Columbus Division of Police, as well as the police at Ohio State University, as they take all of the pieces of information and try to piece it together to figure out, you know, why the situation occurred. We've heard different things from different victims, but we saw from Ted's report, apparently what the one victim, the earlier victims were talking about, the fire alarm being pulled, people rushing out and hearing the screams and the car coming up, all seems to fall into place. But as Ted also mentioned, he had no idea what connection that had with other locations around campus.
And let's listen in to President Drake, if we can. This is the news conference right now.
At 9:53, an OSU PD officer called out on the radio that shots were fired. He engaged a suspect who had gotten out of the vehicle after hitting pedestrians. The suspect cut multiple individuals. The officer engaged the suspect and shot and killed the suspect. The first Buckeye alert went out at 9:55 to alert the campus community that there was an emergency. Many officers from various different jurisdictions all over the county and outside the county responded immediately. By 11 a.m., the shelter-in-place notification was lifted, and the law enforcement personnel in the area continue to investigate multiple other things. There are a few buildings that are still closed. We don't have any reports of anything else. We believe the threat was ended when the officer engaged the suspect. Very fortunate that an OSU PD officer was there and took quick action. And we believe that injuries were minimized as a result of that. We will continue probably to have an active crime scene throughout the rest of the day, and we'll have more updates for you later on those things. As I said, we do have a few buildings that are still shut down just as a precaution as we go through and sweep those. But we do believe that the threat ended right when the officer engaged the suspect.
Did the suspect fire any shots? We'd like to have Andy Thomas also come in and give information on the condition of the people who were injured, and we'll get back to your question. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Thomas. I'm Chief Medical Officer for the Medical Center. We received a number of wounded individuals here at Ohio State. We also received word from our colleagues at Grant and at Riverside that they had received wounded individuals. We actually had great collaboration and coordination between the systems when it comes to events like this. We train for these events. Here at Ohio State, we received 5 wounded individuals from the scene, 2 with stab wounds and 2 with wounds related to being hit by the car. And we've just received a 5th victim who was actually hiding in place as they had been directed to do by the Buckeye Alert, who actually just arrived here at the medical center not that long ago, and her injuries are still being assessed. There were 2 individuals with lacerations that were taken to Grant Hospital downtown. I'm told by my colleagues there that both of those individuals are doing well with not with life-threatening injuries, as well 2 motor vehicle accident victims that were taken to Riverside. And I'm told similarly those 2 individuals are doing well, but I don't have any more information on those folks.
Was one of the people injured? Was the officer injured?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Chief, not that I'm aware of.
The officer's not injured.
No, the officer is not injured.
What were they staring with? Knife, machete?
I'll let the chief or
Chief and the chief. This is
Public
our
Safety
police chief.
comment on
Yes,
that.
right.
Let me just start from the top, and maybe it will answer some of your questions. About 9:52 a.m., a male suspect drove a vehicle over the curb, West 19th, west of College Avenue, struck pedestrians. He exited the vehicle and used a butcher knife to start cutting pedestrians. Our officers was on scene in less than a minute, and he ended the situation less than a minute. He engaged the suspect, and he eliminated the threat. The suspect is DOA. The investigation is ongoing. I want to thank officers for doing a great job. They did what they were trained to do. We have a lot of agencies here that are assisting us: Columbus Police, Columbus Fire. There were 9 people transported to the hospitals, 8 in stable condition, 1 in critical condition. We have a lot of other agencies assisting us here: the State Patrol, Franklin County Sheriff's Office, FBI, ATF. We are making sure that we do everything we can to investigate this very thoroughly and not leave any hole unturned.
Did the suspect have any other weapons?
It's an ongoing investigation. We've recovered a butcher knife. The suspect is DOA.
Is he an OSU student?
That we will be able to provide you additional information when we have another press conference later. The investigation is still ongoing.
Chief, was this a planned thing? Did this seem to be planned, and any indication this could be a terror attack?
It's too early to say. The only thing that you can say, based upon common knowledge, that this was done on purpose, to go over the curb and strike pedestrians and then get out and start striking them with a knife. That was on purpose.
Did the suspect say anything to the police officers?
Ongoing investigation.
Are there other suspects?
As far as we know, there was 1 suspect, and that suspect is DOA. There were rumors of a second suspect, and we searched the Lane Avenue garage, and we could not find another suspect. We believe that there was 1 suspect, and we have that suspect.
Was there a fire alarm pulled before this, and that's why some of the students were out on the sidewalk?
Earlier today, there was a gas leak at a building, and so Columbus Fire was on scene checking that, and it was a valve.
Which building?
That was, I believe, Whitehall, the one at West 19th and College.
So do we think that has any role in this at all?
Still under investigation.
What can you say about the injuries? What type of injuries?
Maybe Andy would speak a little bit more about
Sure.
that.
There were multiple injuries related to lacerations or cuts, most likely, as Chief said, from the stab wounds from the butcher knife. Then there were a number of people that had orthopedic and other soft tissue injuries related to being hit by the car initially. It's our understanding from the other hospitals, and it's our knowledge here, that none of the individuals appear to have life-threatening injuries at this time.
Will they have to have surgery?
One had actually two. If they had surgery. Yeah, two have completed surgery at this point here, mainly for orthopedic issues.
Are they students, faculty, staff?
We're going to release more information with the university at a later time.
Talk about how you called for staff to come to the hospital. Talk about that. We saw them arriving to sleeves rolled up, ready to go.
Yeah, so we have a process that's actually university-wide. When the Buckeye alert goes out, we jump into action. The active shooter protocol is something that went out across campus, but also we internally have what's called a code yellow or disaster drill. We immediately made phone calls to key individuals, both the emergency department, our surgeons, our nurses, our respiratory therapists, and people just descend. We train for this. We work with the other hospitals in the city and the Central Ohio Trauma System to train for exactly these types of events. But I can't tell you how proud I am to work here at the university and to see my colleagues come together in a moment that all of us would really hate to ever have happen on any campus, much less our own. But it was great to see the response, and I'm glad people were not any further injured than they were.
Dr. Drake, back to the mics. If you could talk a little bit about, the mood on campus now, and you've just come back from Thanksgiving break. This has got to be a tough time. We can see it on the faces of students here.
Yes, this is obviously a tragic situation and something that, as Andy was saying earlier, we prepare for every year. Our students, our faculty, our staff are all trained because we've seen things like this happen around the country. And the best that we can do is to be prepared and then respond appropriately. I did want to say that we were so grateful that our police were there on the scene, able to neutralize the situation, that the injuries were not more severe than they were, and that, as you understand, people have been to the hospital already, treated and released in some cases, operated on, but out of the operating room already in other cases. So we're pleased that those injuries aren't any more serious. I'll be able to go and visit those who were injured a little bit later on this afternoon.
What do you hope to say to them?
What I say to patients, regardless of circumstances, that we're here for them, and we want to do everything we can to help them have a full and complete recovery as quickly as possible, and just let them know that we care about them as people as well as patients.
How do you assure students, parents, that when campus reopens, they'll be safe when they come back here?
We all do what we can to be as safe as we possibly can, and we all have the normal safety protocols in place, and we all live with the fear that things like this can happen to us. And so, but by being diligent and focusing, we believe we can be as safe as possible. And again, with our safety personnel and officers here to respond and help protect us, we're pleased that this was no more serious than it could have been.
What do you
plan to do about classes? Did you cancel classes?
We canceled classes today. This was quite disrupted this morning, and we wanted to, even though the situation appeared to be neutralized relatively rapidly, or very rapidly, we wanted to give the police a chance to begin their investigation, and so we held people in place until we felt that the campus was entirely safe and secure. Pleased that was the case. But now we've disrupted the schedule for half a day. It's emotionally draining and quite frightening, and so we wanted to say that this is a good day to to step back from classes, sort of like get our footing, and then open again tomorrow.
Sir, can somebody speak to the nature of the alert that went out that said run, fight, hide, or something to that? Is that a normal alert? Or
yeah, so we have a protocol that we rehearse for what one should do if one engages an active shooter. And what I heard at first was that there were shots fired on campus, and therefore the active shooter protocol was going to be put in place, which is to do as much as possible to protect people, which is to not engage, to find some place to be safe, and to hide in place while the professionals arrive to neutralize the situation. So the first thing, our first order of business then was to make the campus safe and secure, and that happened, as you heard, within minutes. And then we investigate, and when we have information that lets people know that it's safe to resume normal or most normal activities, we allow that to go, that information to be shared. And we do that through text messaging, and it spreads rapidly throughout the campus.
Can you repeat your name? I'm sorry.
Yes, Michael Drake.
Run, Hide, Fight is an ongoing training program. Run, Hide, Fight is an ongoing training program, and so when you see that referenced in an alert message, that rings a bell with members of the campus community that have been through the training.
Talk about, there was a student hiding, so something must be getting through as the medical professionals talk to that. There was a girl hiding inside.
The public safety team has done a lot of training across the community, and again, that's why they use those keywords in an alert to remind folks of what their options are for any violent intruder, whether it be someone with a gun or a knife like today. Those same principles apply. So those are kind of keywords that we use to remind people of their training.
And Mayor Ginther, yeah, you just say
What words did you have to say for the community?
Well, obviously, this is a city made up of great neighborhoods, and we're in one of our greatest neighborhoods. And so we're here to show our support and solidarity with President Drake and the entire university community. Lift up in our thoughts and prayers the victims of this senseless tragedy, and grateful for our first responders that were on the scene and helped to ensure that the situation did not escalate dramatically. I'm here with Chief Jacobs and Chief O'Connor. I want to send a clear message to the university and to the entire community that the City of Columbus will devote whatever resources are necessary and work closely with President Drake and his team to make sure that everyone feels safe in this neighborhood and throughout our great city. And grateful again for Dr. Thomas, Dr. Retchen, and the amazing folks here and at the other hospitals that are treating some of the victims here today. But want everyone in Columbus to continue to lift up in our thoughts and prayers of the victims and their families.
Dr. Drake, talk to us about, what will you say to the parents of students here? I have 2 college-age students, so I know how difficult it is being away from them. Talk to the parents and the families of what they can expect and what you're doing to keep their students safe, and also talk to their emotional and social needs.
Well, as again, repeat what the mayor said, we're pleased that no one was injured more seriously than they were. And, we all know we live in an open society where these kinds of tragedies happen someplace, it seems, on a far too frequent a basis. So what we do on the campus is everything we can to make the campus safe. We have multiple trainings in place and things to make this campus as safe as it can be. And we're pleased with how well those work. And we're pleased with how people have responded to this tragedy today. And we'll continue to work with your students, our faculty and staff to make this the safest place that we can make it. And that's our work on a daily basis. And I'll say that the cooperation that we have with the city, with the police, with fire, with all makes our job that much easier. But we live in an unstable world, unfortunately, and so we have to continue to do our best to protect ourselves against these circumstances.
Chief Jacobs, could you talk about the tools and the methods used to try to assist OSU police in finding out a motive?
Certainly, there's every aspect of this investigation will be mulled over. We've got our federal partners, state partners, and local to try to identify any potential motive behind this attack. Obviously, with the purposeful intent that was noticed driving on the sidewalk, we're going to look at it from the potential that it was planned with regard to multiple injuries. And we will continue to work with all of those agencies to try to determine what was being talked about, whether it was on a device, online, whatever else. We'll continue to look at that.
Can you tell us whether any of what you've seen so far looks like it could potentially be a terrorist act?
Well, I think that we have to consider that it is that possibility. We had an attack earlier this year with a man with a knife causing multiple injuries. So we're always aware that that's the potential, and we're going to continue to look at that. That's why our federal partners are here and helping.
Can you talk about the shooting rumor, the active shooting, the initial reports that there was a shooter and not someone with a knife?
Well, with the amount of people that were here on campus, it was very chaotic. And I'm very proud of the students and the faculty and the staff at OSU to do exactly what they needed to do, and that was to get someplace safe. We know that people did not try to be a part of that scene. They tried to get away from it, which is the right thing to do. So I'm very, very pleased with the reaction of everybody. We should not ever take for granted that the best thing to do is to protect yourself. So I do believe that the response was appropriate, and we couldn't have asked for more, I think.
There's no indication of a gun right now.
There's no indication of a firearm being used by that particular suspect at this point in time, but we haven't searched the vehicle yet. That's to be done. So we don't know what we'll find inside the vehicle.
Any indication of multiple suspects at all?
No indication for sure. Reports of that are being checked out, but we have a lot of witnesses to interview with regard to the aggravated assault that the suspect did, and we'll continue to find out whether or not there were anybody else involved.
Will you and campus police step up to more police presence here on campus and throughout the city?
That'll be up to OSU PD to decide about campus. We don't have any information that tells us that there's, a conspiracy going on.
And we understand there were at least 2 people taken out of the parking garage in handcuffs. Can you address who they were? Were they just bystanders, suspects?
Well, we believe that people, fled the scene and might have gone to their vehicles, and therefore they might have hunkered down when they realized that the police were going to search that building. It was pretty obvious that we were going to do a search, and until we know what their motives are, their intentions are, we're going to treat them as potential suspects.
Are they still being considered potential suspects?
Not that I know of.
What more can you tell us about the one suspect who's deceased now? I mean, is a student, was a male, female, age?
Don't have enough information yet to release that.
Can I ask the question to just clarify the number of folks who were injured? Someone was hiding and had later come to the hospital. So does that mean there's 10 injured in total? Or is that person included in the 9?
It's included in the 9.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes. Who's lead investigator right now? Is it Columbus Police or is it OSU
Columbus Police is investigating the aggravated assault caused by the suspect and the officer-involved shooting. Very, very, as Chief Stone said, I think you might have heard the pride in his voice that we're very fortunate that the officer was on scene so quickly and was able to deal with the situation so fast.
We would like to tell students to please contact their loved ones, and the same with faculty and staff. They know they're safe, but their family members are probably seeing this on national media and do not know they're safe. So that would really help us out if they reach out and contact their loved ones, let them know that they're okay. That would be a great assistance to us.
Have you been able to reach the victims' families to let them know what happened?
I believe most of the victims have probably had a chance to do so. Would you say so?
I can't guarantee that all have, but most of the victims were awake and talking when they were here, and I would expect to have had some contact with them.
Can any of you speak as to when the roads around campus, specifically 315, will see normal traffic flow again?
I thought we opened that up a while ago.
Is it back open?
Yeah.
What about here on campus?
The only thing that I think we're holding now is College and Woodruff and 19th down that way. I believe Lane Avenue should be open soon if it's not already.
Take one more question.
Chief Stone, this might be for you. Did the officer warn the suspect that they were about to shoot? Was there any warning? You know?
As far as I know, he engaged the suspect and commands were not followed, and the officer did what he had to do to stop the threat.
Other than the attacker, was anybody shot?
Thank you. We'll have another update later.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could we get a couple names of, ma'am? Names, who do you need? Who do you need?
A news briefing just concluding on the campus of Ohio State University. We've learned a lot more concerning the situation, beginning with Dr. Andy Thomas, who certainly straightened out the injury situation. Apparently 9 people in all were injured, 4 taken to OSU Wexner Medical Center. Their conditions described as non-life threatening. They appear to be okay. 2 others sent to Grant. They are apparently okay, and 2 also at Riverside. 1 person who was in hiding walked in to the OSU Wexner Medical Center. So that was another victim that we were unaware of until just a few moments ago.
Also straightened out a few things of when the calls went out. It was around 9:52. Suspect drove through that crowd there on 19th, and they described a butcher knife, brought out a butcher knife to start stabbing and cutting people. Then OSU police had said, quote, they were fortunate that OSU PD officer was there and took quick action, that action being to shoot and kill the suspect there who was driving that gray vehicle and then came out with some type of knife. We'd heard some people describe it as a machete. Officers there from that news conference, as well as Dr. Andy Thomas from OSU described it as a butcher knife.
And of course, the first responders took very quick action. The suspect did not respond, according to Chief Jacobs, to the commands of the police, and that's when that suspect was shot. We also learned from Dr. Drake that, this is right after the Thanksgiving break. And he said that unfortunately, we live at a certain time in our society where we are prepared and we rehearse for situations like this. And, when you do have a child that's hundreds of miles away, you worry about them. If they're a couple of blocks away, of course, we know you worry about your children. And what can you say to parents to, let them know that the children are safe? And, Dr. Drake simply talked about everything that was in place. And of course, things worked out. And of course, hoping that things like that would never happen. But just in case it does, of course, they certainly have a wonderful plan in process that apparently works at Ohio State University.
And they praised the response from OSU police, that it was 9:52 that the call goes out, 9:53 that they're responding. So witnesses and everyone on the scene praising OSU police for their response and quick action in bringing down that suspect there, and confirming for us as well just a few moments ago that there is one suspect. They had taken some individuals into custody at the parking garage. They had thought they were related, but now they are saying that they are no longer potential suspects in this case. So one suspect shot and killed on the Ohio State University campus coming from all of this, which unfolded just before 10 o'clock this morning.
Classes have been canceled, but...
So if you've been following along, folks, to everything that's been going on, there are a lot of discrepancies. For one, the woman that was inside the building said that the fire alarm was pulled, and now they're stating that that never happened. And there's just so many other things that one could point out. Much loved Cowboy for some of the different points that you mentioned in the chat. Things just are not adding up with the narrative of what they're going with here. I do always try to err on the side of caution first, because I never would want to say something, if this is a real event and people really did get hurt. Those type of things are sensitive in nature, not only to the person that would have to hear it, but to their family as well. And as a Christian, I try to be considerate of those things and walk in love and grace. I know some people don't like the fact that I just won't come out and say something is automatically a false flag or automatically a hoax. But this is my heart and how I choose to operate myself on this channel. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is my backup channel that I had to create due to a false copyright strike on my regular channel. So if you'd please subscribe so you could see the future live the future live streams with everything that's getting broadcasted out, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day. God bless.